Chapter 293. William did not know what Lancelot was thinking. He wanted to say that the life potion was extremely precious to others. It was a god-level treasure that could bring the dead back to life. But for William, who had hundreds of drops of life potion, it was a great deal to exchange some life potion for a legendary shield that was similar to a ring. In particular, he knew the location of the World Tree sapling. There was no reason for him to cherish such a small amount of life potion. Havto never borrowed external items, but he had many spoils of war. He would often distribute them to the clergymen who performed well or keep them in his storage room. The ring was not a spoil of war. It was a reward from the Temple of Light for his outstanding performance. But he had never used it. Time passed. The Temple Knight's gazes changed. William had managed to hold on for 10 minutes. Even though he was covered in wounds and had lost an unknown amount of blood, even though the armor on his body was almost in a state of being scrapped, he still managed to hold on. It was not the perseverance of being beaten up. It was the perseverance of being able to retaliate. William did not have the chance to persevere for 30 minutes and obtain additional random rewards, but he still won. Prompt: you have completed Havto's challenge. Prompt: you have persevered for 11 minutes and 23 seconds. Prompt: you have obtained the Ring of Sacred Shield of Light. Prompt: you have obtained 300,000 experience points. The moment William admitted defeat, he sat on the ground and panted heavily. He glanced at Havto, whose fist had stopped in midair, but he did not land his punch. Otherwise, he would have to use the life potion again. After William had persevered for 10 minutes, Havto had beaten him to death. Every punch was as heavy as a mountain and was filled with unimaginable power. Havto's defense was as tough as a tortoise's, and he was as fast as a rabbit. If he had not swallowed a few drops of life potion, he would have been beaten to death. Havto took off the ring reluctantly and threw it to William. He said, "You're not a man. Persevere for 10 minutes. If you're capable, persevere for 30 minutes. What's the big deal about 30 minutes? An assassin only needs 1 second to deal damage. No, a real man has to persevere for 30 minutes. Sorry, I'm just a kid." William shrugged. He was still underage. He was sure that on the day he came of age, he would make sure that Hartov would not be able to take care of himself. Havto was speechless. It was true that William was a half-elf, but he was only 18 years old. But Havto, who had the upper hand, was having a good time. At least he was not the one getting beaten up. He extended his hand and pulled William up. "No matter what, you're not bad. The lightning element is also a branch of the light element. Are you interested in joining the Light Palace?" William widened his eyes. He had never seen such a shameless person. How could he say that the thunder element was just a branch of the light element? What's more, isn't the way you poach him a little too much? I'm a lord after all. Lancelot felt awkward. He walked to Havto's side and whispered in his ear. Havto looked at William in surprise. "So it's you, Lord of the City of Dawn. You can also become a Temple Knight and make your city a branch of the Temple of Light." William was speechless again. Havto's shamelessness was comparable to his. Just as Havto was about to say something, the magic transmission scroll in his chest vibrated. He frowned and bade farewell to William before he turned and left. Tens of seconds later, when Havto returned, he didn't care about William and Lancelot. He led 10 legions of Temple Knights and left. Something must have happened. Lancelot was also a little surprised. What kind of situation would make the Light Palace mobilize 10 legions of Temple Knights? And a realm warrior? That was right. After reaching the epic rank, the professionals who cultivated chi were called domain warriors, domain rangers, domain assassins, and so on. So, the difference between a grandmaster and an epic was like the difference between a terminator and a realm warrior. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. If Havto wanted to kill William, even if 10,000 William attacked him, he would still die. Lancelot were curious about the mission that Havto had received. Lancelot was still a messenger of the Temple of Light in the southeastern region. He did not have any connections in the headquarters, so he could not find out anything. William told them that he was tired, so he went back to rest. But he did not return to the side palace that he was staying in. Instead, He walked to an empty garden. He used his soul to sense his surroundings. Then, he extended his hand to touch an eye-catching vase. Then, he touched a hard object. He did not keep it in his space ring. He held it tightly in his hand and looked at it curiously. He took the small box and walked to a temple knight. He waved the small box in front of the temple knight and asked for directions before returning to his residence. 1 hour later, William realized that nobody was looking for him. It meant that the small box did not have any tracking magic. It only had an aura concealment magic. The item in the small box was the purpose of his visit. As for this discovery, it was a coincidence that a player of the Temple of Light had found it. In the game Gods, there were many pieces of equipment. They did not necessarily have to be obtained by killing people. For example, some ruins, some ancient battlefields. Players could often pick up equipment. It was similar to the small box in the vase. It was also found by that player who had nothing better to do after rummaging around. It was like the treasure chests in many games. It brought a lot of fun to the players. But there were too few legendary treasure chests. But all in all, I made a huge profit this time. Although I've lost some of the Water of Life, the Ring of Holy Shield of Light is also a legendary ring with no rank restriction. In particular, its effect is stronger and better than the Sword of Hex. One of the moves is an absolute defense. That's why I used so much life potion to survive for 10 minutes. William laughed mischievously. In his previous life, this ring had helped the player become a legend and become one of the top 10 shield warriors in Huaxia. William did not open the small box. He wanted to look at the attributes of the ring first. After all, seeing was believing. The player had not posted all the attributes of the ring. Ring of Sacred Shield of Light, Protection, Quality, Legendary, Level, None, Restriction, Half-Sealed, Creator, Alsip, Previous Temple Lore of the Temple of Light. Materials, Unknown Defense, 501,100, Power, plus 40, Agility, plus 20, Physical Strength, plus 50, Intelligence, plus 10 Weight, 0, 3G, Usage Requirement, None, Usage Restriction, can only use the user's level. Ring, Advanced, Illusion. The ring can create a sacred shield of light that is 1 times 1 meter to 30 by 30 meters. When the shield is at its smallest size, it has a maximum of 1,100 defense points. When the shield is at its largest size, it has only 500 defense points. Cooldown, None. Consumption, None. Protection. The user cannot move for 10 seconds. Increases the defense of allies within a 300-meter radius by 20% for 5 minutes. Cooldown, 3 hours. Consumption, None. Sacred Shield Protection. Creates 30 of the smallest sacred shields of light that surround the user for 30 seconds. Cooldown, 24 hours. Consumption. Other skills? Friendly reminder. It's a waste for a ranger to use the top-notch equipment of a shield warrior. William ignored the criticism of the mainframe. He was ecstatic. Sacred Shield Protection. Even if it's an attack of a higher level, it can be considered a super godly defense. Chapter 294. Holy Shield Protection's 30 seconds of super defense was definitely an invincible defensive skill. Within these 30 seconds, no matter what danger William encountered, he had a high chance of escaping. He could even turn the tables around. After all, 30 small sacred shields of light were stacked on his body. Each of them had a defense of 1,100 points. There should be at least 3 or 4 layers. In addition to his armor and his own defensive capabilities, he would probably be able to survive the forbidden spell. He did not believe that anyone could destroy all his recovery methods within a minute. Of course, he did not include Havto, who had created his resurrection armor within a minute. William scratched his head and wore the ring on his left index finger. The hardest part of his body was definitely the left hand of the Thunder God. He would wear the ring on his left hand so that he would not lose it. When he dueled with Havto, the left hand of the Thunder God was not in its full form. It was separated by a pair of gloves. Otherwise, it was hard to say who would win in a duel of the same level. After all, Prince William's breast-grabbing hand was invincible. Whoever it grabbed would die. Havto also realized that there was something wrong with his left hand. But even if he dug his brains out, he would not be able to imagine that he had the left hand of God. He took out a small box that he had picked up. William could not help but laugh. Next, it's time to witness a miracle. He threw a magic scroll on the ground. An invisible barrier instantly rose up and completely enveloped him within it. As he slowly opened the small metallic box, it was filled with a metallic texture. In an instant, the colorful radiance was extremely dazzling. An aura that allowed one to let go of oneself filled the area of the barrier. It was indeed an aura that allowed one to let go of oneself. The palm-sized box did not contain any jewelry. It was a crystal-clear white bead. William extended 2 fingers and picked up the bead. He placed it in front of his eyes and examined it carefully. This white bead seemed to contain a world. It was filled with countless magic runes, like an ocean of magic. But this was not a magical tool. It was a piece of equipment. Legendary equipment. Or rather, this was a set of legendary equipment. The upper limit of its growth could reach the Grandmaster level. Rune equipment. William grinned. This equipment was not made by a blacksmith. It was made by a mage. In the Second Era, rune equipment was created for the first time. Even now, there were still people making rune equipment, but the number was very small. This equipment was made up of magic runes and magic metals. As long as one used it, it would become their exclusive rune set, and no one else could use it. However, this kind of equipment that could not be reused also made rune equipment rare. In particular, the crafting method of this kind of equipment was very difficult. The time, energy, and materials required to craft, they were also much more than ordinary equipment and magical equipment. Of course, this did not mean that rune equipment was better than mana equipment. It was just that rune equipment could be connected seamlessly to the user's body. The defense of the rune equipment was the same from top to bottom. There were also several benefits to rune equipment. Based on a user's attributes, it could form equipment with the same attributes and even a set of skills. He could also change the shape of the equipment to his liking before it was fixed. More importantly, rune equipment could be retrieved and reappeared at any time, saving him a lot of trouble in wearing it. But normal people wouldn't be able to imagine how to use rune equipment. William swallowed his saliva. He took off all his clothes and his epic equipment set, which was almost destroyed. He lay naked in the bathtub and took a deep breath. I missed the blood contract in the cultivation game. Subsequently, he swallowed the white bead into his stomach in one gulp. At that moment, an indescribable pain shot through his entire body. William's limbs twitched nonstop, and blood seeped out from all the pores on his body. This was the rune equipment fusing with his flesh and blood. It was fixed to his limbs, head, chest, and back in the form of points. As long as the user used his heart to summon it, it would be instantly assembled on the surface of his body in the form of runes. It would not cause any secondary damage. But this was the first time he had used rune equipment. It would definitely be very painful, without a doubt. This rune equipment was definitely the first product. It might have been created in the Second Era, because William had lost 30% of his health points. Perhaps it was because of this problem that he had been casually thrown here. Time passed gradually. After a full 10 minutes, William stood up from the bathtub that was filled with blood. His mouth twitched. Fortunately, the loss of health points was only temporary. Otherwise, he would have to use the life potion again. After cleaning up the bloodstains on his body, he took a deep breath and silently summoned his equipment. It took less than a second. His entire body was covered by colorful, illusory runes. William immediately constructed the appearance of the equipment in his mind. Another 10 minutes passed, when the illusory magical runes gradually solidified. A slender and plain elven equipment appeared. It was light brown in color, and its surface was engraved with the patterns of the world tree. Electric arcs flowed all over its body. It was similar to the armor of Elrond in the Battle of the Five Armies. Simply put, it's very cool. William looked at himself in the mirror. The helmet, armor, wrist guards, greaves, and shoes were all seamlessly connected. He looked at his hands again. This was the only position that was not isolated by the equipment. After all, this rune equipment could not isolate the aura of the left hand of God. At the same time, he finally looked at the various attributes of the equipment. Thunder equipment set, rune, quality, legendary position level, advanced Grandmaster Creator, materials, overall defense, 530 rune defense energy, 5,000 recovery speed, 100 points per second power plus 120 agility plus 150 physical strength plus 100 intelligence plus 50 charm plus 70 weight, 31. 1 kg durability, 5,300 points, automatically recoverable, usage requirement. William Blackleaf Legendary Equipment Set Special Effect. Health plus 3,500 Legendary Equipment Set Special Effect. Thunder Attack plus 580 Legendary Equipment Set Special Effect. Thunder Damage plus 120% Legendary Equipment Set Special Effect. All attacks will be weakened by 20% Legendary Equipment Set Special Effect. All attacks will have a 30% reduction in critical hit rate. Legendary Thunder. Passive, all attacks will have the power of thunder. It can cause shock, fear, confusion, fainting, and other negative buffs to the enemies. Consumption, none cooldown, none legendary thunder strike. Passive, each attack will attract 5 to 10 lightning bolts and cause 800 plus thunder attribute x 180% damage to the surrounding enemies. Consumption, none cooldown, none legendary body of thunder. Active, you will have a body of thunder. The surface of your body will be filled with electric arcs at all times. Any attack by the enemies will be countered by your own thunder attribute. Your thunder attack will increase by 20%. Your thunder resistance will increase by 30%. Each of your attacks will carry 1,000 points of thunder damage. Consumption, none duration, 20 minutes cooldown, 12 hours. When William saw this scene, only 2 words appeared in his mind. Extremely powerful. Chapter 295. It was not that he had never heard of it. He had heard of it, but he had never seen it before. William did not hesitate to lie down on the long bench. He started to look through the information on the seeded players of the first tournament, as well as some powerful professionals. Second place, William Blackleaf. But don't think too highly of it. Occupation, Hammer Warrior. He smiled and handed the name list to William. He's a newcomer. He's insensible. Please don't mind him, Your Highness. As for the girls and young women who had left, they were licking their lips and admiring His Royal Highness' beauty. Moses raised his eyebrows. Why? A Grandmaster had to be younger than 50 years old. It was impossible to compare the ages of elves and humans. Impossible. I picked it up from a vase in the Temple of Light. As for Chien, Lautner, Odom, and Violent Dragon, although they were also legendary bosses, they were not interested. Or else, they were too old. They wanted to see if they would encounter any famous NPCs. Country, unknown. William did not know if he would be useful as a hostage. The City of Dawn only had the punishment of mining. Power, mercenary. Before version 3.0, the contestants of the City of Dawn were William, Burn Cinder, Annie, Diablo, and Alec. Moses could not help but frown. The southern region was not located in a country. It was located on an island in the sea owned by the Temple of Light. William patted his shoulder. You're very understanding. I didn't spend any money in the City of Dawn. I'll take the information. If you need anything, look for Odom. But you should be fine. After all, there are no dark forces in the City of Dawn. He had the light attribute, and his fighting style was very wild. He had strong defense and was very aggressive. He could throw and catch his weapon. Moses opened his mouth. He cursed in his heart. He could not help but ask, where did you get the rune equipment? There was no death penalty, hanging, or any other punishment in the City of Dawn. For a moment, there were no dark forces in the City of Dawn. After obtaining the Thunder equipment set, William stayed in the Temple of Light for a few days. He made friends with some of the factions. Then, he bade farewell to Lancelot and returned to the City of Dawn. He was a little anxious. The Magic Conference was a good opportunity to become a Grandmaster. Weakness, afraid of close-range attacks. Are you sure what you said is true? Moses couldn't believe it. Could rune equipment be picked up so easily now? Because the upper limit of this set of equipment was only the Guru level, they would not pay too much attention to it. 9th place, Gugarth Bell. In the eyes of some people, they might even think that the fated ones would know about it. Is there anything else? If there's nothing else, then scram. As he came to the central square, the commoners in the pavilions consciously walked out and made way for him. Pooey. All right, since it's free, give me a list of the seeded players of the southern region, as well as their information. Each division had 3 levels. Rushing forward would only be a hindrance. Any random magister would be tied up, beaten, and used as a hostage to threaten director M.O. William did not know if the news of him taking the small box had been leaked. But he deliberately exposed the box to the Temple Knights. He wore his rune equipment and walked around the Temple of Light a few times. He saw many people. In my previous life, there was a very powerful professional. He seemed to have an old rival, a black dragon. The Black Dragon was a combat expert of the Desert Kingdom. His nickname was Bloody Hand. His close combat ability was extraordinary. He had a pair of steel-like hands that could easily tear armor. He had many battle records of tearing the bodies of his enemies to pieces. 1 month after the version update, the news of the Magic Conference was spread to the entire continent by the 4 top powers. William skipped the rankings from 11 to 30. When the players went online again, they would be so shocked that they could not close their legs. It was a little different. That's good. Since you know how to make rune equipment, you must know how to take it off. When I'm done with the rune equipment, help me take it off. The corners of William's mouth twitched. After the rune equipment fused with the body, it was very difficult to remove it. He could only find a mage who knew how to make rune equipment. Moses frowned. No one knew what he was thinking. The Magic Conference was divided into 4 divisions: North, South, East, and West. The commoners in the City of Dawn did not know how to summon devils. The clerics of the Temple of Light did not have a source of income. They could only wait for death in the City of Dawn. Of course, Prince William has good management skills. The Temple of Light messenger watched William leave. When he knew that William had left, he sat on the chair and felt like crying. D*MN, what a loss. You're free, but I have to spend money to make up for it. But it was just a glance. William was stunned. He was even a little dazed. Huh. The Temple of Light messenger slapped his subordinate and flew away. He scolded, "What are you doing? Get lost." In the City of Dawn, this news was like a meteorite falling into the ocean, setting off a storm, drowning countless bystanders and attracting the attention and participation of many professionals. William looked at Moses, who had a bad temper, and left dejectedly. Perhaps it was because the magic revival had almost unlocked the seal, but Moses' temper had become worse. William did not waste any time. He quickly asked, "Do you know how to make rune equipment?" Occupation: I think he's a ranger and is good at soul magic. The man was in disbelief. William kept his money and gave a few names. Moses watched as William left. He gradually closed his eyes. His seal was about to be unlocked, and it would not take long. It cannot be helped. Nonsense. I'm an advanced, and so are you. Prince William has become an advanced for a long time. But if Prince William goes, what can you achieve? Many professionals in the City of Dawn were discussing. Do you want me to make rune equipment for you? Advanced professionals had to be younger than 30 years old. If Moses intended to leave, the City of Dawn would no longer have any connection with Moses. But from the 3rd place onwards, TSK, the southern region only has 30 important names. It seems like the influence of the Magic Conference is not as great as the 2nd conference. Moses hesitated for a long time before nodding. Yes, even if they knew, it did not matter. William did not even knock. He pushed the door open and entered. He was looking at the top 10 names. The Dawn Army paid more attention to the security of the city than other forces. With the advent of the magic revival, William had obtained a lot of magical stones from the Moonlight Elf's treasury. His trusted subordinates, who had been training on Stormy Island for a long time, were all advancing to the advanced 10th place, Marcloud. But according to history, William saw that more and more of his subordinates were about to catch up with him. Moses was sitting in his boss chair and stroking his cat. Now that the players had disappeared, he did not hide in the alternate dimension to conduct experiments. Or rather, it was him. Here are 5 tokens. Please keep them, Prince William. Advanced professionals were no longer rare. They were becoming commonplace. Although the influence of the darkness invasion was great, most of them were in the wilderness. At the fortune-telling shop, Lord William, the professional who sold the competition tokens, did not dare to accept William's money. He grinned and said, "It's free. Lord William is participating in the competition for the glory of the City of Dawn. Why would you need money for the token?" "Oh, who else is participating? I'll card their names on the tokens. As long as he can enter the top few. It would be an S+ mission. He would be rewarded with a lot of experience points. 8th place. Are you going to the Magic Conference?" William, who had left, was not interested in talking to him. The 4 major powers were selling the competition tokens and various information. They were making a lot of money. Battle information. Killed an intermediate fire dragon from the snowy mountain of the East Sea and many devils of the same level. He is the only lord in the 9 continents to defeat the darkness invasion. But it was obvious. Advantages. Rich and has mines at home. As a lord, if William Blackleaf participated in the Magic Conference, he would be armed to the teeth. Hence, his weaknesses could be ignored, but William had no choice. He had no reason to stop Moses. William encountered a few familiar bosses, but most of them had been defeated by the players countless times. The information they provided was, but when William saw the 2nd place, "Oh, how long has it been since I transmigrated? 3 years? Or 2.5 years? 1 month to a lifetime? Think about it. In the first place, just 3 months would be enough." That meant that the higher-ups in the Temple of Light did not know about this equipment, because it was a powerful professional that should not have appeared in the southern region. When William saw the familiar city, the citizens who loved him, and the soldiers who respected him, he heaved a sigh of relief. 3rd place. Sardin peak advantages. Very high defense. Very strong offensive ability. Basically, criminals who had done many evil deeds would not be able to leave the mines for the rest of their lives. He wanted to help. As time passed, if it was not wrong, when one tried to bribe the officials, they would be a group of expressionless elves. If one had the intention to bribe them, he would be an accomplice and would be taken away from mining. Status: Blackleaf Prince, Lord of the City of Dawn, Dragon Slayer, Dawn Mercenary Team Leader. Weakness: vulnerable to mental attacks and long-range attacks. Intermediate professionals had to be younger than 23 years old to participate in the competition. Why would he pay? Roar. He was the reincarnation of a god. Of course, different races had different calculations. In a short period of time, he would become a legendary all-round enchanter with the title of legend. Any illegal behavior had to be punished. Secondly, he did not have the ability to stop Moses. 5 competition tokens. William took out 500 gold coins and slammed them on the table. It seemed that the Temple of Light had predicted that William would participate in the magic and martial arts grand tournament. He did not pay much attention to the 8th to 4th places. Some people had been defeated countless times, so he knew their measurements very well. William went to the Temple of Light in the city to purchase the competition tokens. Race: half-elf hence. The cannon gunners of the Red Fire Kingdom had strong long-range abilities. Not only did they have high explosive power, but they also had strong continuous attacks because they were fully equipped with magical equipment. Weakness: very few. They seemed to be vulnerable to mental attacks and magic attacks. Intermediate, advanced Grandmaster. One word: rich. William only had this one word for cannon gunners. It was just that he had never seen them in his previous life. But he was not a match for them. That's right. I'm a legendary trainee who has been training for 2.5 years. I'm about to witness the unsealing of an all-round enchanter. William knew that after Moses unsealed, he would most likely leave this place and seek revenge from the magic sanctuary. Combat style: good at long-range and close-range combat. Weakness: slow speed. But in comparison, please do not take it seriously. The management staff were all elves. The most troublesome thing was Chapter 296. 1st place: Delosis. Country: unknown. Power: unknown. Identity: freelance mercenary. Occupation: unknown. He possesses the fire attribute. According to the records, the fire attribute on his body could burn for 3 days and 3 nights without being extinguished. Many enemies who were hit by his fire battle energy would lose their minds and become extremely irritable and furious. His combat power is extremely high, and he possesses great lethality. Strength, strong in close combat, unrivaled at the same level. Weakness, unknown. He is not afraid of mental attacks. After looking at the pros and cons, William couldn't help but curse. Reincarnated gods. Why are they afraid of mind power attacks? If it weren't for the fact that their godhood has disappeared, they could kill advanced gods with just a glance. William was a little worried. Delosis was not a main god. He was not only one of the gods. He had 2 god titles. They were the god of wrath and the god of jealousy. The battle energy flames on his body were extremely hot and had many negative buffs. They could cause anger and jealousy to his enemies. After William obtained the rune equipment set, the lightning on his body would cause negative buffs to his enemies. To resist these negative buffs, one had to rely on various attributes to determine the outcome. But the most important thing was the endowments of every reincarnated god. All of them had unique endowments that surpassed the endowments of normal legendary bosses. Were Delosis endowments? I remember that he has a plot. Although there is no instance dungeon, the forum mentioned his endowments. William scratched his head and fell into deep thought. In the center of the legendary continent, at the headquarters of the Temple of Light, Havto had led his legion back without any success. After meeting with the Deputy Temple Lord, he was reprimanded for more than half an hour. His wrinkled face was like an old chrysanthemum that was waiting to be trampled on. He could only leave resentfully. The Deputy Temple Master, who was sitting on the high seat, was not as angry as he was before. Instead, he murmured to the empty hall, "How many deity reincarnations are there that can be verified?" Crack! The space seemed to be cut open. An ordinary-looking young man with a medium build walked out slowly. When he waved his hand, the crack in space dissipated. However, he had already heard what the Deputy Temple Lord had said. He asked, "Are you talking about the legendary continent? The 9 continents?" Legendary continent. The Deputy Temple Master looked at the young man in front of him and stood up to show his respect. 13. But according to the actual situation, the reincarnation of the gods on the legendary continent can't be stopped even if there are 33 of them. This is slightly more than the number of reincarnations on the other continents. This young man, who was dressed in pure white and looked very ordinary, was none other than the Lord of the Light Palace. At the same time, he was also known as the Holy Father of Light. Every time he mentioned gods, there would be an almost imperceptible smile on his face. It seemed to be plotting something. The Deputy Temple Master watched him find a random chair to sit on. Of course, he would not continue to sit on the high seat. He could only walk to the Deputy Temple Master's side and sit down. He said in a deep voice, "The Magic Conference has indeed attracted many geniuses. As long as we check carefully, it is not impossible to find more reincarnations of unawakened deities." The Holy Father of Light, who looked young but had actually lived for many years, knocked on the table with his finger. "Do you think a reincarnated god is still a god?" The Deputy Temple Master smiled bitterly. "If they are not gods, then what are they? As long as they are awakened, they will have the memories of their previous lives and slowly become a god according to their previous path." The young man's expression did not change. He did not say anything, and no one knew what he was thinking. After a long time, he said in a deep voice. "It's enough to verify their identities through the Magic Conference. Unless they take the initiative to contact us, we don't need to contact them. I want to see if the awakening of gods will cause them to lose their humanity. After all, they also have a part of the memory of humans. Is it necessary? Compared to the tens of thousands of years of memory of the gods, is there a lot of human memory of a few decades or centuries? If it is necessary, I do not want to be so ruthless. Moreover, there's a hostile relationship between the gods. We have to make use of this. What about Lancelot?" After saying this name, the Deputy Temple Master saw that the Holy Father of Light's expression was a little strange. He immediately shut his mouth. Gradually, The Holy Father of Light sighed. He is the true Son of Light. Yes, I have not noticed anything unusual about him so far. Everything he does, every word he says, every movement he makes symbolizes light and justice. He is the true Son of Light. I believe that he is not pretending, because there is no way he can hide it from me. At this point, the deputy temple master paused and continued. But he is also the Son of God. Are we really going to rely on him in the end to resist his Father? Why not? Haven't we always been doing this? The Holy Father of Light smiled. He continued. They were sealed in the human world from birth. It was only many years ago that they came back to life as humans. They do not have so-called past lives, nor do they have the feeling of being gods. They have been instilled with the teachings of the Temple of Light since they were young. They do not believe in gods. They only believe in light and justice. If a mere bloodline can restrict them, how can you and I become saints? So when the gods come to the human world, the first enemies they face are not us, but their children. The Holy Father of Light narrowed his eyes. The gods also have emotions and desires, but they are too strong. For countless years, they have long been accustomed to all races surrendering before them. This makes the gods believe that everything they say and do cannot be disobeyed. Humans can only be their pawns. Even if they die, they must complete their orders. But during the time when the gods disappeared, humans have long risen. They do not have to surrender to the gods in the mythological era. They do not have to be slaves for the dragon race in the dragon era. They do not have to be servants for the elves in the elven era. Humans rose in the fourth era, even if the fourth era is about to come. But who dares to say that they will definitely be the master of the next era? So what if the gods come? They will face the counterattack of countless races. Even the reincarnation of the gods will resist. In particular, there are so many races in the gods' continent. Various religious forces want to be the main characters of the fourth era. But who will win and who will lose? Who can say for sure? The deputy temple master sighed and suddenly looked at the young man beside him and asked, "How far are you from that step?" The seemingly young pope shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe it is the distance of a piece of paper or the distance between heaven and earth. After the recovery of magic, can you still step into that realm?" "I can't." "Doesn't that mean that if a Lord God comes, we will become ant again?" The deputy temple master's eyes were filled with helplessness and despair. The Lord God is too strong. Unless they step into another realm from the same plane, they will have a chance to resist. But the Pope of Light smiled inexplicably. "Don't worry, it is not the time to despair. The current recovery of magic is still not that good. Such a low concentration of magic is not enough for the Lord God to take a breath, especially now that they cannot come down. Maybe after the complete recovery of magic, I will take the opportunity to break through. And even if there is no me, there will be others." However, he sneered again. "But if the Lord God wants to come to the mortal world in advance, don't worry about me. If I really punch him back, it will not be good for anyone." The deputy temple master's mouth twitched. "Can you stop bragging? You have only become a saint for more than 1,000 years. That is so many years later than me. And now you want to hang up and beat up the Lord God?" The young Pope of Light curled his lips. "If you don't believe me, then go away." Chapter 297. The four top powers of the legendary continent organized the Magic Conference. Not only for the genius professionals, but they also wanted to find the reincarnations of gods. Or rather, they wanted to find the sons of gods who had lost themselves. They wanted to make them work for them. Of course, some of the genius professionals who could fight on par with the sons of gods were favored by the four top powers. After all, the name of the game was gods. The continent that had not split apart was also called the Gods Continent. Hence, as the plot gradually unfolded, the future main storyline missions were basically related to the gods. If one did not study carefully, one would not be able to tell which was the reincarnation of the gods or the sons of gods. Regardless of whether it was the players or the NPCs, they could not avoid direct or indirect contact with the gods. A few days after William transmigrated, he had already begun to indirectly or directly contact with the gods. Moses, William had already determined that he was the reincarnation of a mage god. The players had been looking for this legendary boss to gain affinity with him. They had also come into contact with the gods, but they did not know that Moses was the reincarnation of a god and the left hand of the god. This was the second time he had come into contact with the physical body of a god. That was right. It was the physical body of the thunder god. He had even fused it into his body. So why does this sentence sound so weird? William, who was sitting on the dawn vessel, tugged at his hair. He did not want to think too much. He should not be involved with the gods. He was now heading to the venue of the magic conference, which was that island. However, as the lord of the city of Dawn, and he had his own warship, he definitely could not go with the others. Grid B, did you understand? Leading a legion to cheer for the gods was the real deal. As for the thunder god, to be honest, William was not worried about him. In his previous life, this silly fool had not searched for his god's body. He had thrown away all the equipment and weapons from his previous life. Even after he had awakened, he felt that he was denying his previous life. Now, he should be in the war-ending empire, being struck by lightning in the capital college. He was really struck by lightning. Speaking of the war-ending empire, he had to talk about the 3 human empires in the legendary continent. They were the Blue Frost Empire, which occupied half of the northern region, the Sunset Empire that occupied the entire western region, the Halting War Empire that occupied more than half of the eastern region. 3 human empires. All of them were extremely powerful, with billions of people under their command. After the Mana Awakening, the potential of the professionals continued to rise, and many ordinary people also had the ability to cultivate combat aura. This made the 3 empires, which had huge populations, even more powerful. Among them, the Blue Frost Empire and the War-Stopping Empire were established at the beginning of the Third Era. As for the Sunset Empire, this human nation, which had been born early in the Second Era, was one of the straws that crushed the elves and the human empires of the Second Era on other continents. The only pity was, after the elves gave up their rule over the continent, the gods' continent was split into 9. The Sunset Empire, which originally occupied more than half of the legendary continent, suddenly split into 3 without any external pressure. However, the division of the human empire did not lead to war. Perhaps it was to guard against the elves' counterattack. Perhaps it was an agreement between the 3 human empires. Perhaps it was to maintain the human hegemony in the Third Era. The Sunset Empire could only choose to break up peacefully and let the other 2 emperors lead countless citizens and soldiers to build a new human empire. And the most basic requirement for the establishment of an empire, it was to have a sage. Whether the emperor was a sage or had a sage under his command, in short, they had to have one. This was the most basic requirement. In short, the 3 human empires on the legendary continent, in the following thousands of years, could be considered to have continued to develop side by side. On the surface, there were no wars, but there were too many conflicts in the dark. Many kingdoms and grand duchies did not suddenly start wars. Behind them stood the interests of the human empires. In a sentence, if the subordinates fought, they would take the benefits. But this was no different from a race war started by the gods. So, in the gods' world, don't talk about good or bad people. No matter what power, no matter what race, basically it was for themselves, and to talk about the 3 human empires, which was the strongest. William could not say for a while. He could only say that each had their own advantages. Among them, the Sunset Empire, which had been established for the longest time, seemed to be becoming more and more decadent. There were simply too many nobles in the country. Any random commoner's ancestor could be a marquis, but with the restriction of glory and bloodline, as well as countless years of historical inheritance, the Sunset Empire had an indescribable sense of unity. In addition, as a human empire that had been established in the Second Era, they had a deep foundation that many people could not imagine. And the Blue Frost Empire? They were a group of boorish people. From commoners to sages, they were boorish. The northern region was extremely large, and there were warm areas. But most of the population of the Blue Frost Empire lived in the snowy northern region. They were all tall and strong. Every day, They drank strong wine, carried knives, and rode frost warhorses to look for trouble. The snow elves hid in the forest, so they had less contact. But the Orcs were a group of boorish people. When they encountered the boorish people of the Blue Frost Empire, they would definitely be suppressed and beaten up. After all, in the legendary continent, only the northern region had an Orc empire. That was an Orc empire that had existed since the Second Era. Although the Blue Frost Empire had never started a war with the human empires, their war with the Orc Empire had lasted for many years. They belonged to the most belligerent human empires. And the war-ending empire in the eastern region? Don't look at the name. That thing was useless. Among the three human empires, the war-ending empire had the largest number of legions, and their quality was not low either. Ever since they were founded, their country had been semi-militarized, and it had lasted for thousands of years. William still remembered his previous life. The war-ending emperor had given an order. With a population of more than 1 billion people, he could assemble 10 million regular soldiers and 50 million auxiliary soldiers in a short period of time. The spectating players were dumbfounded. That wave of darkness invasion against the human empires had caused the human empires to be defeated. At that time, the players truly understood the power of the human empires. The emperor of the war-ending empire had a very good saying. If one wanted to stop war, one must first have the ability to stop war. The players even gave him the nickname of Legendary Policeman. Because wherever there was a war in the eastern region, the war-ending empire's legions would appear. The war-ending empire had many subordinate nations. But no matter who wanted to annex another nation, the war-ending empire would interfere. This also caused the kingdoms, grand duchies, and small duchies in the eastern region to rarely have large-scale wars. I have to say that the southern region is like a motherless child to the humans. There are many kingdoms, grand duchies, and small duchies. For thousands of years, there have been endless wars, and countless people have died. But after so many years of training, some of the kingdoms have become stronger. They are much stronger than the subordinate nations of some empires. William went to the Temple of Light. Besides equipment, he had other gains. He had also obtained a power distribution map of the legendary continent. The territories of the three empires were the largest, followed by the territories of the elves and the great dragons. Then there were the four top neutral powers. Without a doubt, these powers that were specially marked all had sages. The power distribution map of the continent could not be bought in the kingdoms. But he had obtained this map from the Wanderer's Chamber of Commerce. Meanwhile, after he returned to the City of Dawn, the largest Wanderer's Chamber of Commerce in the southern region started to do business with the City of Dawn. It should be a win-win situation. Anyway, William had invited the envoy who came to negotiate to eat, drink, and have fun. Moreover, he had used his reputation to increase. The prince felt that he had profited greatly. As for why the envoy who came to negotiate was dismissed and became a jobless vagrant, the prince dared to swear that this had nothing to do with him. Instead, he felt that the envoy's negotiation skills were excellent. But William believed that even if they changed the envoy, the next business agreement would make the Wanderer's Chamber of Commerce doubt their lives. The City of Dawn had undergone tremendous changes from a small, impoverished town to its current state. Every month, the City of Dawn's business, mineral resources, and food production could bring in $4 million gold coins in profit. That was right. The City of Dawn was super rich. In terms of earning money, it was more than twice as rich as a Grand Duchy. This had a lot to do with the territory of the East Sea metropolis. What was more important was William's discovery of rare mineral veins was something that even some kingdoms could not compare to. He had occupied the City of Dawn, the East Sea metropolis, Stormy Island, and the Merfolk Island. Besides the East Sea metropolis, which did not have many rare mineral veins, the other three places were very valuable. But the geographical location of the East Sea metropolis was very good. It had already developed the maritime industry. With William's large investment, the maritime industry and fishing industry would become better. William did not intend to make the East Sea metropolis the same as the City of Dawn. He only intended to improve the environment and develop the maritime industry, fishing industry, and agriculture. Of course, he would make the city more beautiful. He would make it a city with a sea view. When the number of players increased, he could also develop the tourism industry. The City of Dawn was so rich. William would not be like the human nobles who had all their gold coins to have children. He wanted to convert the gold coins into equipment to purchase magical beasts from the Beast Castle. Otherwise, he would look for kingdoms to exchange for a large number of magical stones to increase the strength of his subordinates. As William continued to daydream, after experiencing a violent storm, the Dawn ship finally saw a rainbow. He also found a light island on the sea map. The Magic Conference, I'm coming. William narrowed his eyes. He was overwhelmed with emotions. He wanted to be the first in the southern region. Chapter 298. The Dawn vessel cut through the wind and waves on the sea. The hull of the vessel was like a small mountain. There were thousands of soldiers wearing high-quality equipment on the deck. The black cannons on both sides were a ghastly sight. They were afraid that the cannons would explode and misfire. After all, only muscular warriors with high defense could withstand shot from the cannons. Small professionals like them would not be able to withstand it. This is the Dawn vessel. It looks very powerful. It's comparable to the main warships of the coastal kingdoms. I've heard that the City of Dawn is developing its maritime industry. Now that I've seen it, it's indeed extraordinary. TSK. I've heard that there are many contestants from the City of Dawn. The City Lord is the second most powerful advanced professional in the southern region. If information is useful, why do we need to participate in a magic conference? The southern region is huge, and there are many powerful professionals, but many of them are unknown. If not for the City of Dawn's recent fame in the Mercenary Guild, who would know about him? Some contestants from the major forces sneered. It was obvious. Not everyone was optimistic about this new force, and not everyone recognized William's true combat power. The recovery of magic had made many professionals stronger. Some had even been reborn. Therefore, many people hoped to obtain a good ranking in the Magic Conference. They were located on the Light Island. The resource island that the Temple of Light had occupied had been developed. Under normal circumstances, there would not be many guards on the island. But today, as the venue for the Southern Region Magic Martial Conference, the four top powers had sent out many of their forces to guard the island. The entire island had been sealed off. Apart from the harbor, anyone who tried to enter the island would be mercilessly killed. There was no need to worry about any power coming to cause trouble. Many ships had arrived at the port. Besides the warship of the Temple of Light, which was fully loaded with contestants, the quality of the warships of the other forces was not high. They could only sail near the sea. If they sailed too far, they might be smashed into pieces by the sea beasts. But even so, there were still many warships that were heavily damaged during this journey. Both sides of the ships were full of scars and scratches from sea beasts. There were even ships that had been buried in the sea and turned into warm feces of sea beasts. Diablo looked at the crowd of professionals at the port. There were tens of thousands of people queuing to enter the Magic Conference. He couldn't help but twitch his mouth. How long do we have to compete? Didn't you read the rules of the competition? At the beginning, there will be an elimination round. 100 people will be in one arena, and the final winner will advance to the next round. It's commonly known as the magical version of chicken dinner. William shrugged. What? What chicken? Who's eating whose chicken? Burned Cinder inhaled a breath of cold air. Was there such a reward? Brother, that was awesome. Scram. William gave him the middle finger. He held Annie's little hand and led them to the competition venue. As for the Dawn vessel, it could go around and hunt some sea beasts. Advanced William, Annie, Diablo, Burn Cinder, and Alec were participating in the competition. None of the intermediate and master stage contestants were participating. There was no other way. Old Pie didn't want to get involved. Sarimas's heart was as clear as a mirror. As a druid, even if he could transform into a silver-backed ape, he would probably be beaten to a pulp. As for the intermediate level, it had to be said, the City of Dawn didn't have any outstanding intermediate professionals. There were epic professionals, but they didn't have legendary potential. They wouldn't be able to do well in the Magic Conference. William and his companions walked to the entrance of the competition venue. Besides some confident professionals, most of the professionals made way for them. The temple knight, who was checking the competition tokens, didn't say anything when he saw William and his companions cutting the queue. He stretched out his hand to stop them and said, "Take out your competition tokens. You should have read the rules of the Magic Conference. You're not allowed to use magic scrolls that are higher than your level. Otherwise, you'll be disqualified." William nodded and suddenly asked, "Yes, I know. By the way, can we bring our mounts?" "Air mounts?" The temple knight who was guarding the entrance used a magic transmission scroll to inquire. Then he said, "There are no rules in the Magic Conference, but you're not allowed to bring mounts that are higher than your level." "I know. Can we go in now?" William grasped Annie's small hand and assured her. Even without the unicorn, she would be able to get a good ranking. Annie was full of confidence in herself. She waved her hand and made the invisible unicorn disappear. She didn't want to follow them in. She didn't want the experts to see through her. This was because the unicorn had already become a grandmaster boss. They entered a magic door that had a teleportation mechanism and a detection mechanism. After a few seconds, the scenery in front of them changed. They came to an extremely spacious square, and it felt as if they couldn't see the end of it at a glance. Burn Cinder stomped on the stone slabs under his feet. He pouted and said, "The enchantment is too strong. I don't think an advanced professional can damage it." William laughed in his heart. Of course not. The enchantment was done by an enchanter. If one didn't have absolute power, he wouldn't even be able to leave a mark on the enchantment. The four major powers wouldn't deliberately create some trash stones for the sake of visual effects. They wouldn't let you break them easily to show how powerful your combat power was. Usually, after the Magic Conference ended, the entire arena was unscathed. The barrier was so hard that it made one's hair stand on end. The plaza was bustling with activity. All of them were contestants. But as there were too many people, William didn't see any familiar NPCs. Of course, there were no spectators. After all, the Magic Conference was not a competition for show. Prideful professionals wouldn't allow others to look at them like they were monkeys. Now, only the four major powers would be spectators. But the Magic Conference was becoming more and more influential. In the next few magic conventions, empires, kingdoms, and even the top forces of other races would also send some officials to evaluate and classify the potential and strength of the participating professionals. As for the dirty deals involved, it was probably just that. But as the four major powers were jointly organizing the Magic Conference, they didn't have to worry about fairness. It all depended on the luck of the contestants. They would draw lots randomly. Yeah, the Grandmaster and Intermediate arenas are separated from us. That's right. Everyone, take a rest and get ready. The Magic Conference doesn't have messy procedures. William didn't finish his sentence. A voice had already reached their ears. The professionals who entered first can participate in the competition. Your competition token will guide you to your respective arenas. You have 5 minutes. If you don't have 5 minutes, you will be eliminated. It was said by a mage who was floating in midair. As soon as he finished his sentence, the professionals in the plaza moved quickly. They had no choice. Time was tight, and the mission was heavy. There was nothing to brag about in the elimination rounds. They just had to do it. Hence, William followed the magic guidance of the token and arrived at a competition arena. And at this moment, he saw a bunch of familiar faces. Oh, it was obvious. It was the death group. It was normal. In other words, it was a group of powerful professionals with extremely low luck points who would gather together. Chapter 299. Rumble. The floor under everyone's feet suddenly rose 10 meters high. Or rather, in a short period of time, the arena that had a length and width of 10,000 meters had formed in the arena. There were a total of 100 such arenas, and each arena had 100 contestants. There were no magic barriers in the arena for the elimination round, and there was no death restriction. Those who were afraid of death could jump off the arena. Of course, it was not certain that they would die. When the contestants were about to die, a protective shield would appear on their competition tokens, and they would be transported to a safe location. Otherwise, who knew how many people would be able to survive after the Magic Martial Arts Conference was over? many people looked at each other and cursed in their hearts. Is it that fair? Why is the drawing of lots so accurate? Am I in the death group? There are 5 contestants on the intelligence list, and there are a lot of advanced professionals. What the hell is going on? Some of the professionals with average abilities felt that the goddess of misfortune had fallen in love with them. William was silent. As expected, his luck did not allow him to enter any easy groups. Kakarot was ranked 7th, a powerful close combat professional. Austinwell was ranked 13th, an advanced mage with both ice and fire elements. Clint was ranked 24th, the Thunder Swordsman. Ranked 27th, there are a total of 100 arenas. You guys are too random. Don't you know how to distribute the experts evenly? William wanted to tell the Temple of Light and the other powers. But the 4 top powers also wanted to tell them, sorry, luck is also a form of strength. Some people are lucky enough. After all, even if 90 million people played Landlord, there would be a winner in the end. What was the winner? This meant that luck was also a form of strength. Low luck? Who cared if you died or not? Almost all the experts who could become legendary experts had to overcome many obstacles. If you could not overcome them, could you blame the goddess of luck for having sacred light under her skirt? When the other professionals in the arena saw William, they suddenly had some thoughts in their minds. The announcement of the start of the competition was heard. It was a chaotic battle. It had officially started. In William's super arena, there was a chaotic battle. More than 10 people charged at the prince, who was ranked 2nd in the intelligence list. They only had 7 words in their minds. Kill him first before deciding the winner. In some other arenas, the professionals who were on the intelligence list were also besieged. Some of them couldn't withstand the first round of attacks and were eliminated before they could display their strength. They might not even have enough money to pay for their journey home. However, no one noticed that 4 top bigwigs were sitting in a pavilion far, far away from the square. Without a doubt, they belonged to the envoys of the 4 forces. The representative of the Brilliant Shrine was the commander of the Southern Region Shrine, Roland Fecker. The 9th elder of the Mage Sanctuary, Irene, a legendary water magus. Scarbrow, the Dark Oracle of the Palace of Darkness, a legendary assassin of the Dark Element. The leader of the Mercenary Guild's Southern Region Guild, Carlos Jarin, a Metal-type berserker. The 4 big shots were drinking tea and teasing each other in the pavilion while watching the battle scene on the hundreds of water mirrors. It was hard to imagine how good their eyesight was. Irene, the 9th elder of the Magic Sanctuary, saw William's arena. She couldn't help but smile. Which do you think is stronger, absolute power or absolute luck? Whatever you say. Scarbrow smiled and glanced at Aline. She was a rare female legendary mage. Not only was she tall and slender, but she was also very attractive. That was right. He was courting her. His intention was obvious. However, Irene glanced at him and ignored him. She wanted to listen to the opinions of others. Carlos Jarin, the leader of the Southern Region Mercenary Guild, pondered for a while. Absolute power. I believe in my fists. No matter how unlucky I am, I will be able to kill my way out and become the final winner. What about you, Roland? Irene looked at her old friend from the Brilliant Shrine. They were all legendary experts who guarded the various forces in the Southern Region. Although they were usually at odds with each other, they also cooperated a lot. As for their secret relationships, normal people wouldn't understand. Roland Fecker stroked his sexy stubble, then glanced at Irene's perky breasts. He chuckled and said, "Of course it's absolute luck. How about I make a bet with Scarbrow? Whoever wins will get a date with you tonight. What do you think?" Scarbrow's mouth twitched. Do I look like I'm unlucky? But he still asked, "What are you betting on?" Roland pointed to the water mirror where William was beaten. "I bet that he will win and stand until the end to prove my luck." Scarbrow glanced at William and slightly raised his eyebrows. That little elfin prince from the City of Dawn? He's very confident. He didn't even wear any defensive equipment. Does he have absolute confidence in his body? But when William was beaten to the ground and vomited blood, Scarbrow hesitated for a while and immediately said, "Yes, I bet that he will lose." Scarbrow hesitated for a moment, then immediately said, "Sure, I bet that he'll lose." I've seen the name list of this arena, and there are many talented professionals that I'm optimistic about. They're all attacking him together now. I don't believe that he can win. Let's wait and see. Roland Fecker shrugged his shoulders. Irene was very angry when she realized that she was being used as a bet. But when she saw Roland's shameless and arrogant expression, she couldn't close her legs. She just snorted and stopped talking. Her flushed face was very attractive. She didn't know what she was thinking. Was William pretending to be weak? No. He just wanted to test how strong his endowment, body of steel, was. After more than 5 minutes of inhumane group attacks, he understood one thing. As long as he did not face extremely strong professionals of the same level, most of the people in front of him could not cause any damage to him after he activated his battle energy shield. He glanced at some people who had dealt tens of points of damage to him. He couldn't help but laugh. You guys are so weak. Why are you still participating in a magic conference? Didn't you see that he had defeated the epic NPCs of the City of Dawn? Kakarot, who was ranked 7th, used his long sword to send him flying. After knocking down several people, William didn't intend to continue hiding his strength. In an instant, colorful magic runes appeared on the surface of his body. In a short period of time, those magical runes rapidly rotated and covered his clothes, forming a seamless rune suit. It was simple. Not only was he handsome, the rarity of the rune suit was enough to make many people drool. Many people cursed William in their hearts. Wasn't he just a lousy city lord? Wasn't he just an elfin prince? What was he trying to act cool for? Did he really think that he could become the champion just because he was rich? It's too late to fight properly now. Kakarot's eyes emitted golden light. When he swung his longsword again, a dense and longsword energy had already arrived. Austin, the ice and fire dual elemental mage, was also extraordinary. There were 2 layers of magical shields on the surface of his body to prevent others from sneaking up on him. When he saw William wearing the rune suit, he became even more cautious. He condensed countless ice longswords in one hand and a fire dragon in the other. At the same time, he enveloped William's seemingly weak body. Clint, the Thunder Swordsman, calmly closed his eyes and held his sword with one hand. Like an assassin, he remained calm and collected. He seemed to be planning to give William a fatal blow. Dozens of professionals attacked at the same time. The area within a radius of a few hundred meters around William was covered by countless battle energy and magic. Even a shield bearer would find it hard to defend against such destructive power. But, at this moment, William also attacked with all his might. The power of the Saint's spirit strengthened his body. All his attributes increased by 23%. When he used the Thunder Body of the Thunder Equipment set, his Thunder attribute attack power increased by 20%, and his Thunder resistance increased by 30%. The most important thing was he was a ranger. In front of countless people, he created a shield that emitted holy light in front of him. The shield that emitted holy light was not very big. It was only 3 by 3 in size, but it blocked the first wave of attacks. Subsequently, his battle energy shield blocked the second wave of attacks. The rune energy of the Thunder Equipment set blocked the third wave of attacks. William charged out of the encirclement of the professionals without any injuries. Meanwhile, when the Thunder Swordsman saw William charging out, he immediately charged forward. The moment he attacked with his sword, hundreds of long and narrow thunder sword energy, accompanied by ear-piercing sounds, charged at William from all directions. But William merely unleashed a thunder sword energy that was like a full moon. It was accompanied by 7 or 8 bolts of thunder that descended from the sky. The tiny sword energy in front of him was instantly torn apart. The close combat between the 2 thunder attribute professionals was so intense that the onlookers could not even open their eyes. Rumble. After a dazzling flash of lightning, a bloody sword wound appeared on the chest of the lightning swordsman of Clint. He was already foaming at the mouth, and his body was twitching nonstop as he lay on the ground. The electric arcs flowing on his body even gave him a hairstyle that made him look like a punk. Damn, I said don't hold back. Don't hold back. Kakarot's heart was filled with anger. How was he going to become the final victor if he still held back at a time like this? However, after this attack, William did not attack again. He stood proudly in the middle of the arena and threw 1,000 magical stones at the troublesome mage, Austin. I admire you. Join the City of Dawn, and you won't have to worry about magical stones in the future. You should have seen my power, but I want to hide more of my power and become a champion. William pointed at the remaining 20 professionals in the arena. He continued, "You are quite powerful. You can join the City of Dawn. I will provide you with enough magical stones. But if you continue to pester me, my Dawn battleship will be waiting outside. The hundreds of cannons are prepared for you. Don't you dare run." The group of professionals stared at each other. "What the F***CK? Why are you so arrogant?" Kakarot, on the other hand, was dumbfounded. What was even more shocking was that the others hesitated for a moment before taking the initiative to jump off the stage. As for the ice and fire dual-elemental mage, Austin, he grinned and happily accepted the 1,000 magical stones before leaving. Oh, they were high-level magicians, after all, not grand magicians who had undergone a qualitative change. No matter how hard he tried, it would be difficult for him to enter the top 100. After this battle, he had a clear understanding of his own power. So what if he gave the City of Dawn some face? After all, Kakarot was just a poor man. Why would he help William? It did not make sense. Subsequently, after using his power of money and threat, William silently walked in front of Kakarot. He pouted and said, "Do you want a duel?" Kakarot pondered for a long time. He looked at his decent equipment and glanced at William's rune equipment set, which could be said to be of explosive quality. He could only admit defeat with tears in his eyes. Chapter 300. Prince William was the only man in the entire world of gods who could use superpowers. His performance in the arena had left many people dumbfounded. Many of the spectators who had not participated in the competition were dumbfounded when they saw people jumping off William's arena. In particular, many people saw him bribing the ice and fire dual elemental mage Austin, and all sorts of verbal threats. The spectators did not know what to say. This included the two legendary bigwigs who had placed their bets, Irene, on William. The commander of the Southern Region Temple, Roland Fecker, had known William for a long time. After all, he had gone to watch the final victory of the City of Dawn. At that time, William had hugged his thigh and cried. He had even thrown a bunch of black and round cauldrons at him. But after William had given him a lot of life potion, their affinity had exceeded 800 points. Roland Fecker had bet on William's victory. He thought that William was quite powerful, but he did not expect that William would bribe him in front of so many people. So I've won. Roland shrugged. No matter what, William was the last person standing in the arena. Scarbrow's eyes widened. He immediately refused. That's against the rules. This is definitely against the rules. I'm going to disqualify him now. Hey. Why? The rules of the Magic Conference were not added at the last minute. They were set by the four major powers a long time ago. Roland quickly stood up and grabbed Scarbrow's arm. Scarbrow clenched his fists. He glanced at Irene and then at Carlos Jalen, who was acting as if nothing had happened. Do you think that the guy from the City of Dawn broke the rules? Irene bit her red lips and remained silent. She did not want to speak. When the other three turned to look at Carlos, he said in a muffled voice, "If luck is considered a form of strength, then money is also a form of strength. 2-1. He didn't break the rules. I won." Roland laughed and even stuck out his tongue to lick his nose. Seeing this, Irene's face became even redder. Wong Defa? Scarbrow's eyes widened. He looked to his left and then to his right. Only then did he realize that these two fellows who had been flirting with each other had already hooked up. Damn it, what's so great about having a long tongue? Roland walked up to Scarbrow, patted him on the shoulder, and sighed. No, it's not a big deal to have a long tongue, and it's not a big deal to be able to talk. The key is that you can lick. Slurp, 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 that's the sound. Do you understand, little boy? Oh, Scarbrow glanced at Irene's strange and coquettish eyes, and like a barrel of gunpowder, he instantly exploded and tangled with Roland. As the saying went, when two dogs fight, one is bound to get hurt. The battle between the dogs resulted in countless casualties. This kind of chicken-eating battle was like a group of male dogs in heat. They had to fight to the death for the right to mate in the end. But as a half-elf, William naturally couldn't be obedient like the other fellows. He couldn't just let them kill each other just like that. His Royal Highness had a mind of his own. If he didn't want to reveal all his trump cards while being ganged up on, he would naturally use his money to win easily. When the referee saw this scene, he realized that no big shot had told him that this was a violation of the rules. He could only announce that the Lord of Dawn was the winner. Subsequently, William came to the side of Annie's arena. When he saw that someone dared to gang up on Annie, he immediately glared at them. All of you scums, listen up. You can fight one-on-one, but if you dare to gang up on her, don't leave Light Island. Otherwise, the cannons of the Dawn warship will be waiting for you. Hence, the other people didn't dare to target this cute little princess who would beat them up. As time passed, when the last warrior stood in front of Annie, he was covered in wounds and was crooked. His armor was almost completely shattered. He glanced at his opponent, who was almost unscathed. Then he glanced at the threatening gaze of the Lord of Dawn. He was about to give a thumbs down, but something that no one could have imagined happened. Annie took out 1,000 magical stones from her space ring and threw them at her opponent's feet. Gosh, William and the referee cursed in unison. However, the warrior, who wanted to give a thumbs down, silently turned into a claw. He quickly picked up the magical stones and jumped off the arena. He was smiling. He felt that he had not suffered a loss. Oh, after all, the value of the magical stones was very high. It was a total of 1,000 gold coins. On the other hand, the entry token and travel expenses were only 510 gold coins. This was simply a huge profit. Were the people of the City of Dawn so generous? TSK, they could rely on the City of Dawn in the future. Meanwhile, Annie and William looked at each other and said, "Is this how it should be?" There's nothing wrong with it. William was speechless. The rich lady was indeed rich and knew how to win people's hearts. Even if she wasn't a legendary expert, she was at least an epic expert. But if William hadn't come, it seemed that Annie would have used her money power. After all, who knew how much the old King of Moonlight had left behind for Annie? Moreover, the Blackleaf Princes had given Annie many benefits. Many of the referees heaved a sigh of relief. When William and Annie went to the other arenas, they only cheered. They did not help the other contestants from the City of Dawn to use their money power. After all, not all the professionals who participated in the Magic Conference were rich. There were only a few contestants who had powerful backers. Even if they did, they might not be stronger than the City of Dawn. Even if they were stronger than the City of Dawn, they might not be as powerful as the City of Dawn. They knew that they wouldn't be able to achieve good results, so they took the money and left. It was not a bad choice. And if they gave face to the Lord of the City of Dawn, it would be easier for them to meet in the future. In the following period of time, William saw the contestants of the Magic Conference. They fought with their lives on the line. There were broken arms and injuries all over their bodies. Burned Cinder, Diablo, Alec, and the others were the same. But there were 100 arenas. Not everyone would be so unlucky. Burned Cinder and the others weren't that famous, so they didn't attract much attention. After the three of them fought for a few hours, they finally became the final victors of their arenas. When the three of them saw that William and Annie were unscathed, their mouths twitched. They were about to ask how they had done it. William didn't say anything. Then, he proudly took out bags of magic gemstones. Each bag contained 1,000 gemstones. I understand. My lord, please take back those bags. They're too dazzling. That's right. As subordinates, we can't withstand such a dazzling light. The three of them wanted to ask why there was such a huge disparity between them, but they could only silently sit cross-legged on the ground. Each of them took out a magical stone and slowly recovered their combat power. But when William used his superpower, it changed the atmosphere of the Magic Conference. Oh, after all, there were still many rich people. William slowly narrowed his eyes. After the elimination round, there will be about 300 contestants left. Each contestant will have to fight one-on-one until the end. But as long as we have enough points, We can win even if we lose a few rounds. For a moment, no one noticed that William had already turned his attention to a certain tycoon. Chapter 301. The Magic Conference was still ongoing. On the second day, the elimination round of 34,000 contestants finally ended. There were no rewards for the losers. However, they could ask the organizers to repair their damaged equipment. They could then watch the competition or simply leave. A total of 340 elimination rounds were held among the 34,000 contestants. Each of the 340 victors would receive a brand new set of dark gold quality equipment. The rewards were bountiful, and it showed the generosity and wealth of the organizers. Many of the victors performed very well. They were not any weaker than the contestants on the seeded contestants' intelligence rankings. This situation attracted the attention of many people. Not only were the contacts of the four major powers communicating with each other, William also secretly asked Diablo and the others to talk to some people to see if they could be recruited to the City of Dawn. But no matter what, the most eye-catching contestant was the first on the intelligence rankings. Marcloud. William was familiar with the god of wrath and god of envy. He had both fire and thunder attributes. His combat power was known for being fierce and violent. In the elimination rounds, half of the professionals decided to join forces to deal with him. However, under Marcloud's fierce attacks, the professionals who joined forces were either beaten to the brink of death or sent flying out of the arena. Especially in the elimination round, not only did he display a strong offensive ability, but his exaggerated defensive ability was also unbelievable. At the same time, he blocked the attacks of more than 30 professionals. His attack and defense were unparalleled. It only took 10 minutes. The elimination zone where Marcloud was at had completely ended. He was only a few seconds slower than William, who had used his money to his advantage. Therefore, everyone was not only discussing the powerful opponents, they were also discussing the Lord of the City of Dawn's money tactic. This tactic attracted the attention of many people. The organizers did not stop these people from discussing. After all, they did not stop William's tactic. If they added another rule, they would be criticized. Therefore, on the second day, some professionals of the major powers started to use these tactics. However, most of the professionals were beaten up badly. Why? It's not fair. Yes, why can't I use money, but the Lord of the City of Dawn can use money to defeat you? D*MN, I'm not convinced. Many local tycoons who wanted to throw money at them were not only robbed, but also beaten up. At this moment, many people were looking angrily at William, but His Royal Highness really wanted to say that he was also helpless. Throwing money at someone's face required a lot of factors. The most important reason was that none of them were as handsome as him. Don't you know how you became the victor? He didn't even have a legendary bloodline, yet he could become the final victor. Wasn't this nonsense? He clearly relied on his equipment to pass the elimination round. Others might not know their abilities, but as a half-player, William could see them clearly with his insight. The strength of the professionals from the major forces was not too exaggerated, but the key was that they had a set of legendary equipment, which was very resistant. As long as their performance in the elimination round wasn't too outstanding, and they didn't want to stand out too much, and they were especially good at hiding, it wasn't impossible for them to become the final winner when there weren't many people left. But now, the 340 people who had completed the elimination round were all powerhouses of the same level who had either crushed or stepped on the bodies of the other 99 people to get here. Who didn't have some confidence? Who didn't feel a little arrogant? Since they had entered the preliminaries, they definitely wanted to enter the semifinals and even the finals. After all, obtaining a good ranking would increase one's reputation. It was many times better than the small profits in front of them. It could be said that if the current opponent did not have an absolute advantage in terms of money and was not very strong, it would be impossible to successfully bribe them. In conclusion, I still don't have enough money, just as William was feeling emotional. In the arena beside him, a young youth suddenly threw out 2 bags of magical stones and shouted, 2,000 pieces, let me win. His opponent was a shield bearer. The shield bearer silently kept the magical stones and wanted to continue attacking. The youth threw out another bag and shouted, 3,000. Gosh, don't attack, brother. Let's talk this out. 5,000 pieces. If you jump down, I'll give you the money. If you attack again, I'll be angry. I have many super magic scrolls of the same level. The luxuriously dressed youth continued to dodge in a sorry state. Even though he was wearing a legendary equipment set, he couldn't block the sharp attacks of the shield bearer. But when the price was raised to 5,000 mana crystals, the legendary shield bearer suddenly stopped attacking. He couldn't help but look at him. He was puzzled that this guy was more wealthy than the Lord of the City of Dawn. After hesitating for a while, he asked, "Who are you? Why should I believe you?" When the youth saw this, he knew that the price had been negotiated. He smiled and said bashfully, "I'm the biological son of the vice chairman of the Wanderer's Chamber of Commerce in the southern region. My house is very big, and there is no one next door. Also, I believe that no one dares to impersonate me. I also believe in my promises. I'm trustworthy." The shield bearer silently gave a thumbs up. Rich people were awesome. He glanced at the bewildered referee and signaled to the youth. In the next moment, the two collided with each other in unison. Boom! A shockwave rolled in all directions. Unexpectedly, the shield bearer was ejected like a cannonball. He rushed out of the shockwave and fell off the arena. At this moment, he was half kneeling on the ground. He clutched his chest and coughed up blood. His eyes were bloodshot as he looked up and fiercely said, "You're indeed the son of the vice chairman of the Wanderer's Chamber of Commerce. I didn't expect you to conceal such powerful strength. It's a misunderstanding. I'm a businessman. This strength is for self-protection. I rarely fight. Take this money and buy some healing medicine. In the future, we'll get to know each other better. Our Chamber of Commerce needs experts like you." The youth laughed and threw 2 bags of magical crystals at the shield bearer. The shield bearer nimbly leaped up and caught the bags. Then he staggered and slowly walked out of the arena. What a scene. Many people's titanium alloy dog eyes had already been blinded. The shield bearer was not a good person. He had earned a lot of face. Now, he was acquainted with the son of the vice chairman of the Wanderer's Chamber of Commerce. His future was bleak. When William saw this scene, he silently stared at the shield bearer. Wayne Golddollar. He had already participated in the first Magic Conference. William squinted his eyes. Wayne Golddollar was the creator of the Magic Conference. He used money to pave the way for the Magic Conference. But that was the second Magic Conference. He did not achieve much in the first Magic Conference. Perhaps he did not think of this idea. For a moment, no one knew what the handsome, kind, and adorable prince was thinking. Anyway, he did not intend to spend money in a duel. William had the capability to do so, but he wanted his opponent to spend money. Hence, he silently took out a magic transmission scroll. He also found the contact information of Roland Fecker. Contact him. Communicate with him. Chapter 302. Nobody knew what William and Roland Fecker had talked about. But when Annie saw William's handsome, perverted smile, she knew that he had done something bad. However, as the most handsome man in the history of the continent, if he did not cheat, his luck value was indeed very useful. For example, William's first opponent was a famous legendary boss in his previous life, the time assassin Willis. Oh, William's luck points actually made the time attribute a little common. It had to be said that he was still very impressive. Willis was an assassin under the command of the Dark Shadow Alliance. Of course, he did not use his real identity to participate. But William had paid attention to his battles, so he recognized him immediately. At this moment, both of them stood in the arena and looked at each other silently. Obviously, they did not have the unusual hobby of saying harsh words before a match. Willis's epic title in his previous life was the Time Assassin, but he also had the Dark Attribute, which meant that he was a dual attribute professional. The Dark Attribute made him invisible. Even though he could not use his Time Attribute to its full potential, he was still very powerful. It was like old leather. You could not hit him, but he could hit you for a moment. William had a headache as he looked at Willis, who was wearing a hood. Willis wanted to spend money again, it had to be said. The ability to use money was very useful. Even though it was a strenuous task, it could be solved by throwing a stack of money at Willis. William looked at Willis, who was quietly waiting for the referee's command. He knew that he could not spend money in this match. The referee shouted, "Begin!" In the next second, Willis disappeared from the empty arena, leaving William standing alone in the arena. Many of the defeated spectators inhaled a breath of cold air. Forcefully invisible when there was no shadow, many of them thought that it was impossible. Even if Willis was a dark attribute assassin, he would not be able to do it. At least, an advanced assassin would not be able to do it. But some of the spectators were shocked. This was not purely forcefully invisible. Willis had created a shadow in an instant to make himself invisible. Then, he would disappear in front of the spectators at high speed. But even so, wasn't this person's speed too terrifying? However, why didn't the speed produce any sound waves? This was unscientific digging. Many of the contestants who had never failed could not understand what was happening. However, they could vaguely sense that the Lord of Dawn was going to lose, unless he continued to spend money. But who was William? He had already recognized Willis. So how could he not know how Willis had managed to make himself invisible? It's not super speed. His body has the power of time, which distorts my vision. But how long can you last like this? William slowly closed his eyes. He planned to use his soul perception to decipher this guy's forced invisibility. It's now. Willis had bought the information. The information stated that the Lord of the City of Dawn was an expert in soul magic. Willis had killed soul mages before. The moment William closed his eyes, he struck with his sword. Whoosh! A light shield appeared behind William, blocking the sharp blade that was like a black shadow. However, that was a fake. Although the saber light still caused damage to the light shield, the real killer move was not the attack from the back, but the oncoming sword draw. He was right. Willis was an assassin. Besides using short swords and knives, he also liked to use long swords. He did not know many moves, but he did not need to. He only needed to master a few moves to the extreme. The sword draw was one of them. That strike was too fast, and the power was too strong. William's battle energy shield was sliced apart like tofu. The 5,000 energy points of his rune equipment fell to the ground. However, there was a snap of his fingers. Boom! A blue, translucent shock wave engulfed a radius of a few hundred meters. Willis's sword draw did not cause any damage, but he was not sent flying by the soul shock wave. Instead, his legs dragged the ground as he retreated tens of meters. Then, he disappeared in the aftermath of the shock wave. It's too fast. Gosh, I didn't see anything. Both of them were just testing each other. They did not use their full strength. Someone said in a deep voice, this battle was worthwhile. Not only could they understand the true combat power of their future opponent, but they could also gain experience and level up. William gradually frowned. It's very difficult to deal with Willis. He is very strong. If I was hit by a sword draw, I would at least lose, 1/10 of my blood. It was not a lot, but that was after the battle energy shield, rune energy, and equipment were broken. If I was hit again, I would lose at least 1/3 of my health points. If an ordinary ranger or mage came, they would be killed in one strike. An epic warrior would at most be able to withstand 2 strikes. Only a legendary shield bearer could withstand it. Willis had grasped the essence of an assassin. He only used one move to kill. If his attack did not work, he would immediately escape. He was constantly emitting a murderous aura, giving people a sense of urgency. He must have deliberately kept me in a highly tense state. If I relax a little, he will definitely deal a fatal blow. William frowned. He spread his mental strength to the surroundings and carefully held the thunderblade in his hand. It was not the time for the sword of Hegni to appear. He did not have any weapon in his left hand. After all, at the crucial moment, he could use the grip of the left hand of God to grab Willis. Because in the God's world, one should never underestimate the assassin occupations above the advanced level. Although basic and intermediate assassins were like brothers among brothers, and player assassins could not even form an army by killing players. Once assassins reached the advanced level, if they had sufficiently powerful equipment, classes, and skills, they could instantly kill other players of the same level. The stalemate did not last for long. At the 4th second, just before William activated his battle energy shield again, Willis charged at him, surrounded by the 9 shadow clones that were attacking him. Illusion, illusion, illusion. It's the illusion of the power of time. I'm betting on my sixth sense. Although William's luck points were low, his battle instincts were never weak. Almost at the same time, he slashed a long and narrow thunder sword energy at the shadow on the left. A total of 8 thunderbolts suddenly descended and struck the shadow at the same time. Rumble. The 9 shadows disappeared. Willis appeared behind William. I've caught you. William narrowed his eyes and grabbed at his back with his left hand. He knew that the 9 shadow clones were fake. He did not use his ultimate skill just now. But it was an illusion of the power of time. It was still too terrifying. William accurately predicted that Willis would appear behind him. But Willis's power of time exploded again. Everyone saw William stretch out his hand and grab a shadow. The moment his left hand clenched, thunder boomed in the entire space. Electric arcs flashed in midair. It was hard to imagine how strong William's left hand was and how strong the power of thunder was. But Willis took a wrong step and slashed at the right side of his body. At the same time, black light flashed. Fresh blood splattered in midair. A long incision appeared on the right side of William's abdomen. His ribs and intestines were exposed in the air. After the second attack, Willis disappeared again. He never followed up with another attack. He had never forgotten the essence of an assassin. No matter how weak his enemy was, or how weak they looked, he had to maintain his best condition. He had to use his most powerful attack. William didn't make any unnecessary movements. He just stretched out his right hand and clenched his wound. His fingers emitted lightning, instantly burning the bleeding wound. As long as he didn't bleed, with his physical fitness, it wouldn't take too long for the wound to heal in a short time. But this attack, his health points dropped by a quarter, and Willis would not give him a chance to slowly recover his health points. William raised his eyebrows. He had many trump cards, but he did not want to use them every time he encountered Willis. I can only seize the opportunity to use Soul Explosion. William muttered to himself. Willis had some equipment and endowments related to soul defense. But compared to the Soul Explosion, if William was given 1 second, he would be able to beat Willis to the ground and ruthlessly trample on him. Just as William and Willis exchanged a blow and rested for a period of time, some of the inferior professionals were getting impatient. They had no experience in watching a battle of this level. Although they knew that the battle in front of them was high level, they could not understand it. Therefore, many people moved to other arenas to continue watching the battles. The top 10 professionals on the intelligence list had very elegant battle styles. They were more than 10 times more interesting than the battle between William and Willis. It was very realistic. Nobody would say anything. After Burn Cinder and the others finished their matches, they had won their first round. When they saw that the city lord was still fighting, they could not help but be surprised. It was because the assassin was much more powerful than some of the professionals on the intelligence list. For example, the cannon gunners of the Red Fire Kingdom were instantly killed by this assassin. When Diablo saw this scene, he could not help but smack his lips. TSK. It would be great if Wales was here. As long as his defense is in place, he would be able to kill this assassin. Alec, can you defeat that assassin? Burn Cinder suddenly asked. The city lord can defeat me. What do you think? Alec, who is also an assassin, could only sigh. The difference between them was too great. He did not want to say anything else. Annie, who had also finished her battle, was expressionless even when she saw that William was injured. She silently clenched her small fists and cheered him on. Annie believed that William would not lose, just as the little princess silently cheered William on in her heart. Another killing move appeared in the arena. Willis made his move, but William was faster than him. He attacked first. Hand of the Thunder God. 80 bolts of lightning appeared within a radius of 80 meters and randomly struck the enemy. Willis was careless and was hit for the first time. The electric arcs on his body kept flashing, but his physical fitness was excellent. He did not suffer from any numbness or other negative attributes, but it was enough for him to be exposed. Mental explosion. Boom. No one heard this explosion, but Willis felt as if his brain had exploded into mush. In that second, time seemed to have frozen. He lost control of time, but it was also at this moment. A large hand grabbed his face and slammed him to the ground. Bang! Bang, 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 bang. William did not make any unnecessary movements. He just grabbed Willis's head and slammed it against the ridiculously hard ground. Willis's helmet was completely deformed. When Willis's protective shield appeared on his tournament token, then he stopped completely. He won the battle with the assassin. It was that simple. It was that dangerous. Because no matter if the assassin killed the assassin or the assassin killed the assassin, it would happen in an instant. Chapter 303. After Willis regained consciousness, he touched the back of his head. There was a huge dent there. He felt as though his head had been smashed flat. He looked at William bitterly. He did not say a word. He turned around and jumped off the arena. He hoped that he could win all the matches. There were a total of 10 rounds in the qualifiers. The top 100 contestants with the most points could enter the semifinals. There were a total of 4 days. In the first 3 days, each contestant would fight 3 matches. All the matches were randomized. However, it was very difficult to win all the matches. After William won the match, he greeted Annie and the others. Before he could walk off the arena, the referee stopped him. "Lord of Dawn, don't leave. Rest for half an hour. The next match will be yours." William frowned. He pretended to sit cross-legged on the ground. He slowly recovered his health points and battle energy. Half an hour later, another contestant appeared in the arena. It was the same legendary boss. He was also a super powerful person. It was Guga's Bell, who was ranked 9th on the seed intelligence list. Attribute: Wind. Guga's wasn't tall or burly, but he was short and strong. Every piece of flesh on his body was filled with explosive power, like a devil's muscle man, a pure muscle tyrant. His fingers were not long, and they were short and fat. However, his nails were sharp and had a metallic luster. William did not know if there was poison in his nails. His nickname was the Bloody-Handed Butcher. William did not know how he was related to Ning Lihung. Gugas came to the arena and approached William. He was about the same height as William. Both of them looked at each other. Gugas sneered and said, "Lord of the City of Dawn, admit defeat. Otherwise, I'll break all your limbs and allow you to return to the City of Dawn alive and kicking." William was puzzled. Then he remembered that the Desert Kingdom must have known that he had sided with the Red Fire Kingdom. On the other hand, Gurgith Bell was considered an Earl of the Desert Kingdom with outstanding military service. Hence, the two of them were natural enemies. His Royal Highness was too lazy to respond to him and just silently raised his middle finger at him. Gugas did not understand, but he raised his middle finger a few times. His face turned ashen. The Lord of the City of Dawn had treated him like a woman and wanted to capture him. Damn it. The aunt could bear it, but the uncle could not. When the judge saw this, he knew it was time to serve the dishes. He immediately shouted, "Begin! Die!" Gugas immediately shone with green light. Oh! The light of the wind element charged towards William. The distance between them was less than 100 meters. In less than 0.3 seconds, the two sides collided. William brandished his war blade horizontally, releasing bolts of lightning with the sound of thunder in front of him. However, Gugas, who had never used any weapons before, had already strengthened his hands to the level of legendary weapons of the same level. When the thunder blade collided with his palms, the sound of metal colliding could be heard. A wave of chi rose. The blade of lightning brushed past the opponent's palm and continued its downward slash. The approaching blade, Aura, seemed to have the intention of splitting his lower body in half. Gugas lifted his knee to block the sharp thunderblade. His left hand was like a tiger's claw as he grabbed at William's chest. The latter's left hand of the god met the attack as well. But Gugas was faster. He knew that William's left hand had an incredible ability. He missed the chance to break through the rune equipment on William's arm and leave a bloody wound on William's arm. How is this possible? Gugas inhaled a mouthful of cold air and retreated. His nails were comparable to legendary weapons. After breaking through the rune equipment, he could feel the incredible toughness of William's flesh. William narrowed his eyes. Guga's nails were poisonous. It was just a small wound, but Guga's lost 130 health points every second for 30 seconds. While Guga's was retreating, William charged forward and activated the Light of Dawn. The remaining 50% of his battle energy surged into the Thunderblade, increasing the attack power by 290% and the thunder element damage by 560 points. Boom! A long and narrow sword energy that looked like a full moon slashed across the sky. In an instant, it pierced through a few hundred meters. The green battle energy shield was broken. Meanwhile, Gugas, who had used his arms to block the attack, was sent flying back thousands of meters like a cannonball. His arms looked as if they had been crippled. His bones and flesh were exposed in the air, and fresh blood flowed continuously on the arena. Burn Cinder grinned. If it wasn't for His Highness's lack of accuracy, the Light of Dawn that he mentioned would definitely be an ultimate move. Is William going to win? Is the Lord of the City of Dawn so fierce? We didn't see it in the previous round. A professional could not help but ask. Diablo shook his head and explained, it wasn't that simple in the previous round. This time, William's opponent isn't that simple either. Although Prince William's attack is powerful, it didn't even cut off Guga's arms. It didn't cause too much damage. Just as he finished speaking, Gugas shook his arms. Gugas swung his arms, and his flesh and blood rapidly recovered. Without a doubt, every combat expert had the endowment of a top-notch shield warrior. For example, Violent Dragon. Both of them could fight head-on. Then it was over. Both of them activated their impact skills at the same time. When the Thunderblade and the green light collided, shockwaves and explosions reverberated in a radius of 10,000 meters. But William's Dawn Assault was clearly superior. William used his left hand to block the light shield and sent Gugas flying into the sky. In the next second, William gently clenched his left hand. Bang! Tens of lightning bolts descended from the clouds. They continuously struck Guga's body. When Gugas landed on the ground, William raised his middle finger again. The Thunder Finger. That indescribable lightning bolt was like a thunder python that broke out of the sea. It illuminated a radius of 10,000 meters in a short period of time. The surrounding professionals were blinded by the dazzling lightning bolt. But it was such a powerful move. The moment it got close to Gugas, a dazzling green light radiated from the surface of his body, and he shot up into the sky like a tornado. The lightning finger was broken, and the indescribable lightning barrage did not enter the tornado's encirclement at all. Guga's body continued to rise. In a short period of time, he flew into the clouds. Countless green wind blades dispersed the sea of clouds. At this moment, many people gasped. Cyan Bladestorm, one of Gugas's strongest moves. William knew what Gugas was going to do, but the second Gugas descended from the clouds, the tornadoes around him transformed into green wind blades and charged at William from all directions. There was no way to dodge. There were many blades. It was like a metallic storm, but William did not activate his sacred shield. He bent his legs slightly. Everyone only heard a loud explosion. The moment William brandished his sword, he soared into the sky along with the sword energy. The tens of meters of thunder, sword energy, shattered the thousands of green wind blades. They turned into specks of light and dissipated in the air. William, who was temporarily safe, used the defense of his battle energy shield to collide with Gugas again. Rumble. Electric arcs and green light blossomed hundreds of meters high in the sky. One of them fell to the ground, while the other returned to the clouds. But it was not over. Even though they had separated quickly, the speed at which they collided again was even faster. They were like two rainbows in the sky. They collided, and separated, until in the sky, thousands of meters above, two distinct blue and green pillars of light appeared. This scene was like a heavenly anomaly. It was comparable to a battle between a few Grandmaster warriors. It was unknown how many people were looking at them, but just as the two of them stopped for a moment, they knew that the battle was about to end. Gugas, who was hovering in the clouds, trembled. His hands were trembling. His fingernails had all cracked, but he was not satisfied. The purpose of this trip was to defeat the contestants of the Red Fire Kingdom. The City of Dawn was also within his attack range. He did not get the chance to cripple Annie, burn Cinder, Diablo, and the others. But he was determined to defeat William. Hence, he took a deep breath. The green wind blades within a radius of 1,000 meters fused with his hands. It was as if he was wearing a pair of glowing green gloves. Lord of the City of Dawn, prepare to die. Gugas shouted. His hands swept across the sky, drawing out rays of light that lingered for a long time. They were like two eagle claws that were tens of meters long. They struck the ground with boundless sharpness. William raised his head. When the green light appeared, he closed his eyes. But in the next moment, he rose from the ground and charged into the sky with thunderous roars. But he did not use any powerful skills. He relied on his own defense to penetrate the attack range of the eagle claws. His body was badly mutilated as he charged towards Gugas. Gugas could not believe that William could still fight in his current state. But he did not know. William had used his resurrection armor. Next, William did not make any unnecessary movements. He grabbed Gugas' left hand. Crack! He crushed it. Gugas' left hand was crushed like a pile of bloody mud. Only half of his wrist was left. Gugas retreated with a ferocious expression, but he did not know how to accelerate. His momentum was too strong, and he could not retreat. He had no chance. Hence, William grabbed his right hand again. Crack! The bones in Gugas' hand were crushed. Next, William used his head to knock Gugas, and he fell to the ground like a cannonball. Gugas still had enough health points. He did not activate the protective shield of the tournament token. William transformed into a bolt of lightning and slashed down. His feet stomped on Gugas' abdomen. Gugas' head and legs were lifted up. He punched. Bang! Gugas' head smashed on the ground. Half of his face disappeared, and his facial features collapsed. The protective shield had blocked William's fatal attack. But Gugas, he was completely unconscious. Both his hands were crippled. Half of his face had disappeared. William sent him flying out of the arena with a kick. Then he looked at the hostile contestants of the Desert Kingdom and raised his eyebrows. Yo, the professionals of the Desert Kingdom are so weak. I've just finished warming up. You. A warrior wanted to say something, but he was held back by the person beside him and brought away. But he had to say it. Ever since Gugas said those harsh words, Yi Zichen's expression had changed. William noticed that his affinity with the Desert Kingdom was decreasing rapidly in the information box. If that was the case, should he fight them openly? The Red Fire Kingdom would deal with the supercombatants. If his ally could not even deal with a small obstacle in the Magic Conference, how could he be considered an ally? But William did not know. He was acquainted with the chief commander of the Temple of the South, Roland, and they had teamed up to trick Wayne Goldcoin. Did the Desert Kingdom not know a legendary warrior? The reason why William wanted to be the champion of the Southern region was not for the equipment reward. It was for a slot that could provide him with great benefits. Only the Desert Kingdom knew about this. This was why the Desert Kingdom targeted the contestants of the Red Fire Kingdom and William. Chapter 304. The Lord of the City of Dawn defeated two powerful opponents consecutively. No one could tell how strong William was from his fight with the assassin. But many people were able to see William's true combat power when he battled with the number 9 on the intelligence rankings. Many people exclaimed in satisfaction. Many people were optimistic about William's chances. They thought that he would have an exciting duel with the number 1 Marl Cloud. But no one would have thought that before he even stepped down from the arena, another opponent would come up. The referee stopped William in surprise. He allowed William to rest for half an hour before continuing the duel. That was right. Someone had schemed against William. Or rather, the Desert Kingdom had already made their move. William's opponent had been arranged by someone else. He didn't even have the time to get off the stage before another extremely powerful opponent was arranged for him. This opponent was also a legendary boss. He was a fire element cannon gunner who was not on the intelligence rankings. His name was Dom Dillon. He was the 3rd prince of the Lion Kingdom in the southern region. Nobody knew that he was participating in the competition. It was only after he won the elimination rounds that people started to notice him. In the pavilion, the four legendary big shots paid attention to the battles of the middle rank, high level, and grandmasters at the same time. Roland Fecker's expression darkened. William had made a small deal with him. Roland wanted to fight with Wayne Gold Coin in the 10th round. This kind of small arrangement was very easy for him, especially since he had received so much life potion from William. There was no way he could return this favor. Since William wanted to cheat Wayne Gold Coin of some magical stones, it was not impossible. After all, Wayne Gold Coin's surname was enough. He did not lack money. But Roland did not know that someone had cheated William. He glanced at William's third opponent. He was a fire element cannon gunner, an advanced professional who was not on the intelligence rankings, but had performed very well. Roland turned his gaze to the 9th elder of the magic sanctuary, Irene. His gaze was complicated. She must have been the one who had arranged this. He knew that Irene had a good relationship with the Desert Kingdom. She knew that he was related to William, but she still helped the Desert Kingdom. Roland had worked hard last night for nothing. It was a pity. Irene completely ignored him. She only threw a few glances at him, and the bootlicker Scarborough followed behind her. He had completely forgotten that Irene had a meeting with Roland last night. Half an hour later, William stood up. His health points had recovered, but the durability of his rune armor was not fully recovered. Some of his powerful skills were still on cooldown. At this moment, he was feeling a little angry. The Desert Kingdom was really too much. They had arranged for a group of experts to take turns to fight him. They were determined to make him lose a few times. There was no need for too much. As long as he was defeated twice, he wouldn't be able to enter the top 100. As for the Desert Kingdom, apart from Gugas, the other opponents were all top-notch professionals from other forces. However, it was precisely because of this that none of them wanted to lose. Even if they knew that they were just pawns, they would still give it their all. William and Dom Dillon looked at each other. It was Dom's first time fighting, but he noticed that William had fought 2 matches and had not rested for a long time. Dom knew that he had been arranged to be William's substitute. Dom Dillon was also a little displeased. However, since someone had arranged for him to draw lots in a magic martial arts conference, it was obvious that it had to be one of the big shots of the 4 top forces. Even if he was the 3rd prince of the Lion Kingdom, he could not afford to provoke such a situation. He could only complain to his father when he returned home. As for now, then they could only fight, because he had never lacked confidence. He was the 3rd prince of the Lion Kingdom. His talents had been extraordinary since he was young. Among all the princes, his combat talents were the most outstanding. Among all the geniuses in the Lion Kingdom, his strength was obvious to all. He had experienced more than 100 life-and-death battles and duels. He had won all of them. He had nothing to fear. As for William's rune equipment, Dom shrugged his shoulders. Although he did not have any rune equipment, he was using the most powerful magical equipment set, which came with a set of long guns and short cannons. Dom looked at the bloodstains on William's equipment, but he did not say what he wanted to say. However, when the referee announced the start of the match, William drew his sword and was about to charge forward. In the end, Dom Dillon said it. Suddenly, he said to William with a righteous expression, "You're both princes. You fought 2 matches consecutively, and you've exhausted a lot of your energy. I don't think you can use your ultimate skills within a short period of time. Although I want to defeat you, I want a fair fight. I don't want to fight you. I'll give you some time to rest." When William heard this, his ugly expression finally turned for the better. After fighting for so long, he finally met an old friend who looked at him in a different light. It was not easy. However, he had never thought that Dom Dillon was just saying it out of politeness. As a prince of a kingdom, he had been taught from a young age that he had to be magnanimous and far-sighted. Only then would he be able to recruit talents who would be loyal to him. He could even fight for the throne. He and William were rivals for the time being. Dom thought that if he could say something to improve William's impression of him, he would not mind. But he did not expect that. William, who was shameless, nodded and said, "All right, I'll rest for 3 hours." William, who had never known how to be thick-skinned, nodded decisively. "All right, let's rest for 3 hours first." Dom Dillon held the cannon in his hand, dumbfounded. He was an elfin prince. What about his arrogance? William should have rejected him. Did he say something wrong? You should have rejected me, right? Did you say something wrong? What was he thinking? How could he rest for 3 hours? How could he be so shameless? Did he agree to it? William wanted to say it. Whether he could endure it or not, he could defeat him. This was because high-tier cannon masters were far from being overpowered. Out of all his opponents, they were the easiest to deal with. It was to him, not to others. But since William had spoken, he had to rest. Of course, he had to rest. It gave people the feeling that this prince couldn't last long and was about to be defeated. William would be able to take advantage of the situation. Dom Dillon did not speak. He saw William sitting cross-legged on the ground, resting with his eyes closed. William looked like he was about to take a nap. Dom Dillon wanted to kill William. It was a pity that William was a prince. He would not go back on his words, especially in front of so many people. He could only smile while cursing in his heart. He hoped that William's injuries would be difficult to heal and that his combat power would be greatly reduced. Dom was confident, but William's combat power made him feel that he was a pervert. 3 hours later, only tens of spectators were left at William's arena. William slowly stood up and said to Dom Dillon in a deep voice, "I'll let you lose in a better way. Cut the crap. Come on." Dom Dillon had been waiting impatiently for a long time. He decisively took out his gun and fired an enchanted bullet. Bang! William had just dodged the bullet when it exploded beside him. The huge shockwave depleted a lot of his battle energy shield. Long-range bullets? William thought as he moved at high speed. After that, Dom kept retreating and opening up the distance between them. He kept firing limited-range bullets. This was a type of bullet that was detonated by magic. It would explode at a certain distance. The purpose of this kind of bullet was to prevent it from hitting the enemy. Hence, it was an expendable bullet that was extremely expensive. Dom Dillon was also a prince, so he did not lack money. Otherwise, how could a normal person fire dozens of long-range bullets in such a short period of time and deplete William's battle energy shield? When William arrived beside Dom Dillon, the latter grinned and threw a magical tool to the ground. It was a freezing scroll. Crack, crack, crack. The arena within a radius of 100 meters froze. William flew into the sky, afraid that he would be frozen by the scroll. Now's the time. Dom Dillon knelt on one knee. The pike in his hand became thicker and longer. He gathered battle energy in his hands and channeled it into the pike. A huge line of fire erupted from the pike's muzzle. Boom! A small pillar of fire pierced through a few hundred meters. It hit William's chest squarely. But at this moment, a blue transparent ghost arrow pierced through the pillar of fire and hit Dom's chest. The arrow exploded in his chest. Both of them suffered heavy injuries. But to William, who had thick skin and flesh, that shot had only caused him to lose 1/8 of his health points. In the next moment, his body was enveloped by the saint's spirit. He appeared in front of Dom Dillon and stabbed his sword into Dom's abdomen. The sword energy penetrated Dom's body and reduced 1/5 of Dom's health points. However, Dom reacted quickly. His magical equipment lit up, and a huge cannon muzzle appeared in front of William. At that moment, William felt a fatal sense of danger. William lowered his head and aimed the cannon muzzle at the fire dragon's reverse scale on his chest. Boom! Time came to a standstill. William felt as though an atomic bomb had exploded between them. The intense pain was indescribable. It was as though his entire body was immersed in lava that was thousands of degrees Celsius. The explosive force caused his body to retreat uncontrollably. He was sent flying hundreds of meters into the sky. This was the best time for Dom Dillon to unleash his full power. He swallowed the blood that was gushing into his throat. He combined his pike and cannon into one, and they resonated with his magical equipment. Hence, the super long spear that had changed shape was like a Gatling gun. It fired wildly at William, who was in the sky. At this moment, the spectators who had rushed back were dumbfounded. They glanced at William, who had disappeared into the shockwaves of the explosion. Then they looked at Dom Dillon. They did not expect Dom to have a set of magical equipment. Not only did he have a set of defensive equipment, but he also had a set of weapons and defensive equipment. He was indeed a person who had the ability to make money. However, As Dom Dillon unleashed his ultimate move, the smoke and dust dispersed. The spectators stared at the sky in bewilderment. William was standing there unscathed. It was as though the previous wave of attacks had not caused any damage to him. The spectators were completely dumbfounded. What kind of defensive power was that? It was a pity. William would not tell them that he had used the sacred shield protection. He had conjured 30 miniature sacred shields that covered the user's body for 30 seconds. Now, witness me beating up the cannon master. But what they didn't expect was that Dom Dillon patted his chest with his right hand. The Lord of the City of Dawn is very powerful. I'm no match for him. Let's meet again in the future. In vain. That was right. Dom realized that he could not defeat William, so he jumped off the arena and left. Chapter 305. A wise man submits to circumstances. It was obvious. Dom Dillon was that kind of person. He knew how strong he was. He also knew how powerful his explosive attacks were. He was very proud. He had used his fire line burst, hand cannon strike, and unlimited firepower, but William did not suffer much damage. If he continued to persist, he would just be waiting to be beaten up. Dom would not allow himself to be at a disadvantage. Since he had shown off his skills, he had to prove that he could defeat William. Hence, he decided to run away. This is only the first round. I don't believe that I'll encounter an expert like William every time. Dom slipped off the arena. He was still thinking about the next battle. He must have held back. Since he could not find a way to defeat William, there was no need for him to persist. Only then could he face the next challenge. Most of the audience did not boo Dom when they saw him jump off the ring. They were amazed at how powerful William was. Even the third prince of the Lion Kingdom, a pay-to-win big shot, had admitted defeat. There might not be much to watch in William's competition, unless he would face top professionals of the same level every time. After all, William's elimination matches, as well as the 3 battles he had won, had shown his true strength. He was rich, well-equipped, had strong combat awareness, and had insane defense and high damage. He had excellent close and long-range combat skills. He had no major weaknesses. High-level cannon masters, regardless of whether it was their battle energy value or the magical energy crystals that could be used, would be a powerful set of explosive abilities. They could deal high damage. They could also kill their opponents instantly. But if the enemy did not die after using some tricks, the cannon gunner would be doomed. Anyway, cannon gunners who had not reached the Grandmaster level were not considered as the direct descendants of many occupations. Only when they reached the Grandmaster level could the cannon gunner unleash their full potential. A powerful cannon gunner could unleash 3 to 5 explosive attacks like William's. It was enough to turn a weak, legendary shield bearer into minced meat. The cannon gunner's close combat, long-range, area of effect, and single damage abilities were incredible. For example, the hand cannon and other close combat skills would be greatly improved. They could be used to deal with close combat occupations. As long as the cannon gunner could distance himself from his opponent, he would be able to attack within the shooting range of his magical musket. Of course, the key was to have money. Otherwise, a piece of mana equipment would cost at least 1 mana crystal, and they would have to change their mana crystals every few days. Those without money were not fit to play the cool launcher class. William was depressed when he saw Dom Dillon running away. He secretly remembered Dom Dillon's appearance. He would find a chance to kill him in the future. After all, it was already the 3rd round. There would be no more battles today. When Burn Cinder and the others saw William walking down the arena, they hurriedly surrounded him and asked about his well-being. It seemed like they were sincere, but they were just trying to show their respect. After all, William was a lord. If they did not greet him, they would not be bullied in the future. Until now, Annie finally heaved a sigh of relief. She was about to say something to William, but her battle had already arrived. A referee called out Annie's name. She would fight in the 2nd battle. Be careful. If you can't win, just admit defeat. William walked over quickly and rubbed the little princess's head. Annie helplessly slapped his hand away. She turned around and said, "I know. I'm older than you. Don't rub my hair all the time. It's messy." "Who are you looking at?" I'm the only one looking at you. If anyone dares to look at you, I'll dig out their eyes." As William spoke, he had already reached the edge of the arena. He stared at Annie's opponent. It was a ranger. Epic bloodline. It was not easy for him to become the winner of the elimination round. He had not recovered from his injuries. Shameless. Annie turned around and stuck out her tongue. She was about to unsheath her sword. The young ranger lowered his head. He was emotional as he said, "Since the first day I became a ranger, I swore that I would never attack the elves. Because the elves are natural rangers. This is my belief. I'm not a match for the princess. I'll admit defeat now." The referee opened his mouth. He had not said the start of the match, and the ranger had already admitted defeat. Were they not giving him face? But the young ranger had already jumped off the arena and ran away. He knew that he could not defeat the little princess of the Moonlight Elves. Even if he could defeat her, what if the violent lord of the City of Dawn took revenge on him? What if the royal members of the Moonlight Elves took revenge on him? Although this was a competition, and no one would do such a thing, it was better to be safe than sorry. When Annie saw this, she could only angrily hit William's chest a few times with her small fists. "It doesn't hurt or itch. Do you want me to take off my rune equipment and let you hit me?" William laughed. "Annoying. I'm definitely not an immortal." Annie did not understand William's dialect. She remained silent and waited for the third match to begin. At this moment, Burn Cinder, Diablo, Alec, and the others started their second match. Burn Cinder's opponent was very weak. He was a fire element warrior with epic bloodline. Burn Cinder had not encountered any opponents. Needless to say, Burn Cinder would definitely be defeated. After all, when two flames fought, one of them would be extinguished, but Diablo and Alec were both legendary opponents. It was a pity. Diablo's opponent was a legendary shield bearer. In a duel arena, it was very difficult for a shield bearer to display his full strength. Even though the shield bearer had sufficient defense, their destructive power was too low. Other than the extremely powerful shield bearers, ordinary shield bearers lacked many powerful skills. Even if the shield bearer was a legendary, he was considered very powerful. But when the legendary shield bearer's opponent was also a legendary warrior and mage, the disparity in their abilities was widened. Diablo had an easy time. After fighting for more than half an hour, the legendary shield bearer had no choice but to concede defeat to preserve his strength. As for Alec's opponent, it could only be said that the legendary mage was very unlucky. His luck was probably in the single digits. Alec was an advanced mage who could not display his full strength. In the end, he encountered a legendary assassin. It was obvious that he was defeated. Both of them fought for less than 3 minutes. After Alec slashed for the 5th time, the legendary mage, who was covered in blood, chose to concede defeat. William was not paying attention to the third duel between Burn Cinder and the rest. Or rather, at this moment, all the professionals in the plaza were not interested in the duels. Instead, they surrounded a certain arena. It was a duel between Heavy Hammer warrior Sardin Peak, who was ranked 3rd in the intelligence report, and Delosis, who was ranked 1st. Indeed, someone is more unlucky than me. Or rather, someone arranged for these two to duel. William's eyes flashed with lightning. He decisively chose the best spot and levitated in midair to watch the duel. The reincarnation of the God of Wrath. Has he awakened his memories from his previous life? William watched the duel. The first thing he saw was the familiar Delosis. He was tall and had a head of thick black hair. He had thick eyebrows and thick lips. He looked very comical, but one should not laugh at his appearance. Although he was ugly and often appeared to scare people, his combat power was not weak. Those who did not have the strength to mock his appearance, most of them were killed. Many players who had mocked him were killed. The referee announced the start of the duel. Delosis's body instantly ignited with flame-like battle energy. Even his hair and eyebrows became flames. Many fire-type professionals sucked in a breath of cold air when they saw this. What kind of endowment was this? Wasn't he too compatible with the fire element? Was this the reason why he was ranked 1st in the intelligence report? He was the son of the fire element. It had to be known. Professionals could awaken certain elemental attributes, but that was the manifestation of their battle energy. Their skin, flesh, and blood were resistant to these elements. This was because advanced professionals could not turn their bodies into elements. Only when they reached the Grandmaster level could the bodies of professionals gradually turn into elements. Then, epic professionals could form a basic elemental body. For example, when Old Band broke through in the dimension vortex naked, his space elemental body appeared. It was because of this transformation that Old Band and William were able to tear open space tunnels and escape from the pursuit of many epic professionals. But Delosis was able to do this when he was an advanced. Even though he only had eyebrows, hair, and body hair, it represented a qualitative change. This was the ability of a reincarnated god. Every reincarnated god of a god had an abnormal talent. Of course, Delosis is much weaker than the reincarnation of the fire god. William stroked his chin. The reincarnation of the fire god was not in the legendary continent. It was the continent of the European players. But there was no need to worry. The reincarnation of the gods would be seen sooner or later. When the 9 continents were united, the reincarnations of the gods were everywhere. Oh, many of them were chased and beaten up. After all, reincarnation was just reincarnation. It was not like a true god had descended. Even so, the reincarnation of the god of wrath can still beat up 90% of the legendary players of the same level. After all, the legendary is just a legendary. But the reincarnation of the gods can at least be as powerful as the sages. Even though both of them have legendary bloodlines, their endowments have widened the gap between them. Although William thought so, he was not sure that Delosis would win, because Sardin Peak was not weak either. He had become a legendary player in the later stages and was close to becoming a sage. His endowments were extraordinary. But Sardin has not reached his strongest state. This light element warrior with dual hammers has not bathed in the blood of his nemesis, the Black Dragon. William could not help but smack his lips. The current light element warrior. In the future, he would possess the light and dark element godly hammers. The 2 people in front of him would be very powerful in the future. While William was daydreaming, Sardin threw his dual hammers at the same time. They exceeded the speed of sound and smashed towards Delosis. Delosis stomped on the ground, and a huge flaming wave that was a few meters thick rose in front of him. The dual hammers pierced through the flaming wave. Just as Delosis was about to grab the hammers returned to Sardin's hands at the same speed. Sparks flew as they stared at each other. The battle had officially begun. Chapter 306. There were 9 continents in the gods' world, but it did not mean that there were players in every continent. There were 2 continents without players. They were the fantasy continent and the hopeless continent. While Sardin and Delosis were engaged in a bloody battle, William's thoughts shifted to the fantasy continent. As the name suggested, all the sceneries, creatures, and people in the fantasy continent were like a dream. This continent, or rather, this world, had jellyfish that could fly, mushrooms that could take root in the air, cities that could float in the clouds without the help of magic, and humans that could fly with ordinary cloaks without a doubt. This was a land of dreams, a world that existed between reality and illusion. There were many strange creatures here that would definitely be an eye-opener for those who had never been there. Until now, various new creatures were born in the fantasy continent every day, but wars were rare here. This was because the gathering places of peaceful creatures and the gathering places of the terrifying creatures were often separated and completely isolated. The continent that had undergone a similar change was the second hopeless continent that had no players. This continent used to have intelligent races, and it was also the continent where humans ruled. But after that strange change, the hopeless continent had undergone a qualitative change. Until now, the intelligent creatures were almost extinct. Even if they were not extinct, they had become creatures without intelligence. The entire continent was in a bloody, brutal, and disorderly state of chaos. Killing and survival had always been the main theme of the hopeless continent, and the endless killing. Even normal intelligent creatures would lose their rationality sooner or later and become monsters with the passage of time. As for why the 2 continents were like this, according to the historical records, Before the continent of the gods was divided into 9 parts, the continent of gods was divided into 9 parts. Or rather, before the first era, after the war of gods and devils, this problem had gradually appeared. At that time, the fantasy continent was like a mirage, gradually disappearing from the world. The absolute chaos of the impassable realm continent, coupled with its unbreakable barrier, made countless people flinch. More importantly, the people inside couldn't come out at all. In the end, when the gods' continents were completely separated, these 2 continents had completely disappeared in many historical records. Only 2 names were left. There are no records about these 2 continents. Fantasy continent, hopeless continent. These 2 continents were fundamentally opposed to each other. From a moment it changed, it had already formed its own continental boundary, or perhaps it had been jointly set up by other saints. William watched their battle. Why did he suddenly think of the 2 continents? That was because, as the champion of the Southern Region Magic Conference, he had a chance to go to the fantasy continent. No one had told him about this before. The organizers of the Magic Conference had only said that the champion of each region would receive an irresistible reward. It was only during the 2nd and 3rd Magic conventions that the news gradually spread. As for the impassable continent, I'm sorry. It was possible to enter that place, but unless one was a saint, it was absolutely impossible to walk out alive. Someone can open the door for you, but you want to come out? Only by becoming a saint could he return to the world of gods. Since ancient times, how many people have entered the impassable continent, become a saint, and come out alive? There were only a handful of them. Most of the NPCs either died inside or became mindless monsters. In the later stages of the game, players could return to the city to revive, but they would not be able to come out after entering. William could not help but think the fantasy continent and the impassable continent have undergone a qualitative change in the rules. According to the information I obtained in my previous life, the fantasy continent represents the spiritual world. The impassable continent represents the world of power. The remaining 7 continents represent the real world. The remaining 7 continents represent the real world. All the creatures in the fantasy continent are made of dreams and created by mental strength. The only way to enter is by entering with one's mental body. The fantasy continent had already disappeared from the surface, leaving only an invisible boundary. Although the impassable continent did not disappear, its own boundary could not be broken by a legendary expert. Because of the change in the rules, almost all the creatures in this continent were bewitched, turning them into monsters that only knew how to use brute force to kill. Only the other 7 continents were considered normal. If I can become the champion and enter the fantasy continent, not to mention those magical fruits that can strengthen the endowment of mental strength, if I can find some good items, I will have a cheat-like artifact. Oh, have you seen Dorman before? Most of the things in the fantasy continent were created by mental strength or dreams. It cannot be helped. The rules of this continent were isolated from the gods' continent. Everything was possible. It was completely unscientific. Under normal circumstances, it was difficult to bring out the things inside. But a small portion could be brought out and used normally in the gods' world. But even so, it could be considered a small artifact. William pondered. This opportunity is too rare. Even if I'm a grandmaster and I'm lucky to be the champion, I won't have a chance to enter for a long time. Even if the 9 continents unite, these 2 continents are completely separated by a boundary. Without those top experts opening the way, not only can I not enter, but I also can't leave. The fantasy continent was a super instance dungeon for the top genius NPCs of the 7 continents. It was a rare opportunity, so William had to fight for it. William stroked his chin. He remembered that someone had discussed on the forum, and William agreed with a few of the viewpoints. That was, the fantasy continent and impassable continent had changed their rules. It should have been caused by some artifact. Otherwise, it was godhood. Furthermore, it was the Lord God who had not died, but was in a deep sleep. But no matter what, these 3 viewpoints were related to the gods. Anyway, from the current information, it had nothing to do with the Dark World. Because the Darkness Invasion only existed in the other 7 continents, and they could not enter these 2 continents. William did not want to think about how powerful the Lord God was. He also did not want to know if their divine power could affect the rules of the world, because it did not matter whether he was worried or not. Even if the sky collapsed, there would be tall people to support it. He would definitely not be the first to die. For the time being, he only wanted to ensure that he would be the champion. He also wanted to be prepared not to suffer too serious injuries in the fantasy continent. That was right. Those who entered the fantasy continent from the outside world would not die. As mentioned before, the only way to enter the fantasy continent was to use a mental body. Every time the mental body was killed, a portion of mental strength would be lost. For the players, it was the upper limit of their intelligence. If there were no accidents, they would lose 10% of their intelligence every time they died. Regardless of whether they were an NPC or a player, they could be revived 10 times. It was fine for the players. Even if their intelligence dropped to 0, they would not die. But for the NPCs, if their mental bodies were destroyed 10 times, even if they did not die, they would become a soulless idiot. D*MN, when I think of this quota, I want to bring Moses along. William's head hurt. The fantasy world had all kinds of unconventional weapons, tools, and creatures. This mental world would definitely make many NPCs who had not been there doubt their lives, because the fantasy continent would definitely let people understand what it meant to change the world with dreams. But what William knew was that these two continents were like a different world. They had been completely isolated from the gods' continent. Even in the later stages of the game, they did not have any qualitative changes to the real world. Chapter 307. The battle between Sardin Peak and Delosis had come to an end. Both of them had very few weaknesses. They were adept at fighting head-on. The Hammer Warrior was not a shield-bearer, but he had good defensive endowments. His 2 hammers could be used to block attacks and to deal crushing damage. Delosis only wore a pair of flaming gloves. To him, no sword could compare to his flame ability. Hence, he chose to wear a pair of gloves that could enhance his flame ability. In the early stages of the battle, it was hard to tell who was the winner. But after 10 minutes of intense battle, the gap was revealed. Delosis became fiercer and fiercer as he fought. His eyes were burning with flames, and he looked like an enraged thug. The angrier he was, the stronger his combat power was, and the higher the damage of his flame attack. However, Sardin Giant Peak's movement slowed down. The injuries on his body weren't too many, but his face was red like a cooked crab. His blood was boiling, and his body temperature had exceeded 100 degrees Celsius. If he was not an advanced professional, he would have been dead. As for his light element, it could deal crushing damage to dark creatures. It was enough for him to become a war god. But to Delosis, light attribute damage was like a tickle to him. To injure Delosis, he could only use his hammers. If there was a weakness, it would be their movement speed. They were far inferior to William, who had semi-agility attribute points, but the arena was not a field fight. Even though the arena was 10,000 meters long and wide, it was not enough for the ranger to fight. As time passed, Sardin was defeated, but when he chose to concede defeat, Delosis was infuriated, and he continued to attack. In the end, the Grandmaster referee had to stop him. Only then did Delosis stop. The battle scene between the two of them was not too exciting. It can only be said that every punch hit flesh. It was very bloody and exciting to watch. After a few minutes of probing, Sardin knew that he was not a match for Delosis. He wanted to persevere, but Delosis did not give him the chance to use his killer move. In the end, everyone was optimistic about this battle. It became a long war of attrition. The spectator experience was not as good as the one of the Lord of the City of Dawn. This caused many in the audience to boo, expressing their displeasure. Just as the crowd was about to leave, Delosis, who was infuriated, suddenly shouted angrily, "A bunch of good-for-nothings. You don't even have the right to enter the arena. How dare you make thoughtless remarks outside? If you have the guts, come up to the arena. I will kill all of you. Damn it. I'm giving you face, but you don't want it. Do you really think you're some big shot? That's right. You're just a freelance mercenary. Even the Lord of the City of Dawn isn't as arrogant as you. Do you really think that you're the best in the world just because you're ranked first in the intelligence report? You're just a high-level professional. If you have the ability, go fight in the Grandmaster arena. Some people were unhappy and immediately started cursing. Say one more King sentence. Delosis seemed to have lost his mind. He rushed out of the arena, and before the referee could react, he made his move. He used his hand as a knife and slashed. A several dozen meter long flaming saber instantly arrived in front of the onlookers. The flaming blade had yet to arrive. The flaming saber aura had already scorched everyone's hair. The high temperature made many people feel as if they were in a sea of fire. While the keyboard warrior who was cursing was dumbfounded, William, who was in the crowd, hesitated for a moment. Then he swung his hand and unleashed a thunderous saber aura. The two attacks collided. Accompanied by a rumbling sound, the thunderous and fiery shockwaves spread outwards and blew up many onlookers. Many of them stared at Delosis in horror. Wasn't this guy a little too arrogant and easily angered? How dare he cause trouble at the magic conference? Delosis did not have the chance to attack again. He was restrained by the referee. He squinted his eyes and looked at William. Lord of the City of Dawn? Yes. Next time, don't attack me. William raised his eyebrows and turned to leave. Delosis remained silent. No one knew what he was thinking. William stroked his chin. Delosis was easily angered. After all, in his previous life, he was the god of anger and jealousy. But he could control his anger and anger. He could also ignite the anger and jealousy of his opponent. Just now, he seemed to have attacked out of anger. It was to give others the impression that he was easily angered and to make others look down on him. Otherwise, Delosis would be testing William. Or perhaps, Delosis had not awakened his memories from his previous life. But no matter what, he had always been a difficult opponent. The reincarnations of the gods were very shrewd. Just by looking at their appearances, they would be deceived. It was the 5th day of the Magic Conference. William had already fought 9 battles. He was only left with the last battle for the day. Currently, he had 9 victory points. It was the same for Annie, Burn Cinder, and Diablo. The performance of the 3 of them shocked many people. The combat power of the 3 of them was comparable to the top 30 professionals on the Seed Intelligence list. In fact, they were even stronger. It wasn't that the Sand Kingdom didn't continue to cause trouble, but they did not send the perverted William to fight. Instead, they targeted Annie and the others, but all of them failed. Only Alec. In the past 2 days, he had lost the chance to enter the semifinals. As an assassin, and a shadow assassin who had become a legendary boss halfway through, it was difficult for him to defeat a close combat professional who was also a legendary boss without a sneak attack. But even so, as a rising power, the City of Dawn had many talented advanced professionals. Many people had a whole new level of respect for the City of Dawn. In particular, the Lord of the City of Dawn's 9 consecutive victories made people acknowledge his strength. After all, up until now, there were only 30 people who had won 9 times in a row. There were even fewer people who had 8 victory points. There were only 20 people who had lost 3 to 4 times. The rest had lost 3 to 4 times. After all, not everyone's recovery ability was that strong. In many cases, the previous battle would affect the next match. And William, in the 10th match, he finally met the son of the deputy chairman of the Southern Region Rovers Chamber of Commerce, Wayne Goldcoin. After both of them went up to the stage, William's smile became more and more perverted. The corners of Wayne's mouth twitched. He knew that he had been arranged. He thought that he had been arranged by the Desert Kingdom. Those Beastris starred wanted him to spend money to win. They wanted to prevent William from achieving 10 consecutive victories. But His Royal Highness really wanted to tell him that he didn't need a 10-game winning streak at all. The actual benefits were far more important than that. Moreover, 10 consecutive victories did not give him any legendary points. Who else would he cheat if he did not cheat William? I have 7 victory points now. Some idiots don't accept money. But if I don't have 8 victory points, it will be very difficult to enter the finals. Wayne Goldcoin thought for a while and made up his mind. He charged at William and waved his sword. William unsheathed his sword and was in a stalemate. At this moment, Wayne Goldcoin hurriedly said, "Prince William, don't be rash. The Rovers Chamber of Commerce is the trading partner of the City of Dawn. We are allies. How about 10,000 magical stones for me? Was William the kind of person who would be greedy for money? He was. But the money was too little. He decisively shook his head and kicked Wayne Goldcoin's abdomen, causing him to retreat tens of meters. Wayne, who had suffered internal injuries from the kick, could feel William's powerful strength. What was more important was, not only was the Lord of the City of Dawn powerful, but he also had the ability to use money. Perhaps he would not agree to Wayne's request. I'm not willing to accept this. Why? Why is this happening? Am I going to miss the semifinals? They're the top 100 advanced professionals in the southern region. Wayne felt hopeless, but just as William was about to beat him up, the killing blow that young Master Wayne of the Goldcoin family had anticipated did not happen. Instead, he was pinned to the ground and beaten up. William rode on Wayne and punched him. At the same time, he sneered in Wayne's ear. It's just 10,000 magical stones. Do you think that I'm poor? How much do you want? It's the semifinals. Think about it. The top 100 advanced professionals in the southern region. How famous are they? How much do you think they are worth? William kept punching him. Wayne Goldcoin's face was bruised and swollen, and he felt dizzy. In just a few seconds, he was punched dozens of times. His ability to think was short-circuited. In the end, under the incessant bewitchment of the devil, the famous young Master Wayne of the southern region hastily said, 20,000. No, the lowest is 60,000. How is that possible? I don't have that much. Stop punching me. My face is swollen. 30,000. At most 30,000. No. Pom. William's left hand of the god grabbed Wayne's neck and punched him again. 40,000. 40,000. Young Master Wayne of the Goldcoin family could no longer speak clearly. There was no response. Then there was another round of punches. But when Wayne Goldcoin had a chance to catch his breath, he did not say another word. He just threw out all the magic stones he had. There were 50 bags of them, all in a daze. When William saw this, he knew that he had squeezed out all the magical stones he had. After all, he was not a juicer. It was enough to snatch some magical stones. He did not care about the other items. Young Master Wayne of the Goldcoin family was also in awe. He had never seen such a brutal way of robbing money. He was afraid that he would not be able to negotiate with the Lord of the City of Dawn. He just wanted to become one of the top 100 advanced professionals in the southern region. Was it so difficult? You win. William happily picked up the magical stones and shrugged his shoulders. He slowly stood up and jumped off the arena without looking back. The referee was expressionless. The spectators were also expressionless. Annie and the rest were also expressionless. When they saw William and Wayne Goldcoin whispering to each other, they had already expected this outcome. It was just that they didn't expect that William could not only use the money ability, he could also restrain the users of the money ability. Oh, what did this prove? If one wanted to use the money ability, he had to be strong. Those who did not have the ability to use the money ability could only be robbed. Chapter 308. It was the 6th day. William, Annie, Burned Cinder, and Diablo had advanced to the semifinals. The mature assassin had been eliminated. Was this a degeneration, or was it a distortion of human nature? Either way, Alec was depressed as he sat beside William. He hoped that William could comfort him. Even if that was not possible, William could stroke Alec's hair like how he had stroked Annie's hair. The city lord seemed to have read his mind. William placed his hand on Alec's head. He looked at Alec expectantly. "Pa!" The slap almost made Alec lower his head to eat his bird. William gently pinched Annie's cheek, ignoring her struggle. He tilted his head and said, "It's just that I didn't make it to the semifinals. What's the big deal? An assassin's ability doesn't belong to the arena. It's a head-on battle. How many assassins and warriors have a head-on duel? You have to remember, failure is the mother of success. If you fail this time, you could just work hard next time." Alec touched the back of his head and said tearfully, I understand. Prince William is right. I'll go home and train hard. When I become a grandmaster, I'll participate in the competition. Yes, go home and train hard. You can use the magical stones at will. After all, I didn't expect to come into contact with Wayne's treasure vault. I earned 49,000 magical stones for nothing. William smiled and nodded. A man of the City of Dawn was not afraid of failure. Unyielding, never giving up, strong and brave. It was more or less someone else, and it had nothing to do with him anyway. Wayne Goldcoin, who originally wanted to get close to William and borrow some magical stones to continue spending money in the semifinals, silently sighed after hearing William's words. He had decided he would not spend money in the semifinals. It was not because William was cheating him. He had money. He did not care about money. What was money? It was just a number, but he did not bring that much money in his space ring. But the key was that William had actually changed his surname. Treasure Vault, MMP. It was infuriating. Did he think that he was a treasure vault that he could casually withdraw money from? He was such a bully. He would not spend money anymore. In the end, William also saw Wayne's small vault after being pointed out by others. He immediately ran over. Isn't this young Master Wayne of the gold coin family? Did you not bring enough savings? Do you want me to lend you some? Wayne was about to nod. He looked at William, who had beaten him yesterday. He felt that there was a conspiracy. But was William the Prince the kind of person who would spend money on a treasure vault? He immediately took out 20 bags of magical gemstones and slapped them on Wayne's hand. He said in a low voice, "I believe in the credibility of the Gold family. You can take these 20,000 magical gemstones. Wayne Gold Coin rank. I believe that you could be ranked higher. You should be one of the top 50 high-ranking geniuses of the Southern Divine region. However, the monthly interest is 20%. Every month that passes, the interest will increase by 20%. But I believe you won't need a month to get the money, right? Gold, are you going to lend it to me?" William interrupted him. Wayne was very sensitive about money. He calculated carefully and thought about his status and wealth. He nodded and said, "This is a critical time, so the interest is not high. It's only 20%. I don't need 2 months. I can pay you back in 1 month." "That's good. Let's sign the agreement. Remember, you can only return the money to me." William handed over the agreement document that he had prepared. He found a Grandmaster Temple Knight to examine the agreement and act as a notary. Just as Wayne Goldcoin was about to stamp his seal, he was stunned. "What if you suddenly disappear? How can I return the money to you? If you disappear for a few years?" William's mouth twitched. It was not easy to deceive Wayne. He took out a pen and crossed out the condition. "Is this okay?" According to my years of experience as a businessman, it's okay." Wayne Goldcoin stamped his magical seal. His soul aura was imprinted on the contract. It cannot be faked. Both of them happily shook hands. They each took a contract. They felt that they did not suffer any losses. Burn Cinder noticed that Wayne Goldcoin had left. He could not help but ask, "Are you letting him go just like that? This is not like you, Your Highness." William raised his eyebrows. "Will you look at the contract again after you've seen it?" "I don't think so. At most, I'll take it out on the day I return the money." Burn Cinder shook his head. "That's it." William threw his contract to Burn Cinder. Half an hour later, the month of the monthly interest turned into day. There were no signs of it being changed. It was flawless. "Gosh!" Burn Cinder and Diablo widened their eyes. What kind of magic was that? It was so cool that William did not discover it. William proudly raised his eyebrows. Of course, the Grandmaster Temple Knight was a brute. He could not see through Moses's cool magic. Ever since he decided to participate in the magic conference, he had asked Moses for many blank contracts. There were no other words on them except for the word month. As long as he activated the contract, after half an hour, the word month would silently turn into the word day. So William only needed to make some changes to it, and he would be able to scam many people. Of course, if he really wanted to do business with the Wanderer's Chamber of Commerce, he would definitely not use this kind of contract. The Wanderer's Chamber of Commerce was rich and powerful. They might tear up the contract and kill him. This method would only target people who were in urgent need of money. Oh, he was definitely not in urgent need of a loan shark. Anyway, Wayne Goldcoin was a cash machine for players in William's previous life. He would not be satisfied if he did not scam some money from him. Who was Wayne Goldcoin? He spent a lot of money. He was extremely wealthy. He had countless properties. He was a godlike tycoon in the southern region. As long as he liked something, if someone dared to compete with him, even if the item was worthless, he would sell it at a sky-high price. In particular, Wayne Goldcoin's memory was not good. He was often scammed by the same person many times. Wayne would only refuse to interact with those people when his subordinates reminded him. Wayne Goldcoin's character was still unknown. This was because the Magic Conference was his first official appearance. In the future, he would be involved in all sorts of money-throwing activities in the southern region. As for whether Wayne Goldcoin would bear a grudge against William after he scammed him, it was impossible. As long as he did not insult his character, as long as he did not compete with him on who was wealthier, Wayne of the Goldcoin family would not care about money scams. What was this called? He was really rich. Because the Goldcoin family was not very famous in the southern region. The leader of the Goldcoin family was only the vice chairman of the Wanderers Chamber of Commerce. In fact, the Goldcoin family's business had expanded to the entire continent. The legendary Chamber of Commerce. It was a super chamber of commerce that covered the entire continent. The old leader of the Goldcoin family was one of the elders of the legendary Chamber of Commerce. The young master of the Goldcoin family, Wayne, was not a fake tycoon like William. If the prince was scammed, he would plunder the person's house, dig up the grave, and whip the person's corpse 100 times. Not too long after, in the semi-finals, William met an unexpected opponent, Canis Iron Fist. It was a dwarf prince of the Iron Fist Kingdom, one of the 7 dwarven kingdoms. When this person entered the arena and saw William, he looked at William with disgust for a moment. The smell of gunpowder filled the arena. William seemed to understand something. Chapter 309. The Iron Fist Dwarf Kingdom. When the Lonely Mountain Dwarves ruled all the dwarves, the Iron Fist Dwarves were just a clan. They were a group of proud and fierce warriors, belonging to the vanguard of the Lonely Mountain Empire. Now they lived in the northern part of the westernmost mountain range of the Blackleaf Forest, near the west coast and the Desert Kingdom. They are known for their ferocious warriors and excellent weapons. They lived in the southwest region, where there were few green plants and more mineral veins. They were the only 2 dwarf kingdoms living in the southern region. The other dwarf kingdom was the Iron Blood Kingdom. The other 5 dwarf kingdoms were located in the western region and the northern region respectively. Most of their territories were connected to each other, so they could prevent other forces from attacking their territories. However, the Iron Fist Dwarf Kingdom was the most warlike among the 7 dwarf kingdoms. Today's Iron Fist Kingdom, except for the Blackleaf Elves, basically all the surrounding human countries had more or less disputes and friction with it. Although there had never been a war to destroy a country, several legions often fought. The Desert Kingdom was also one of the old rivals of the Iron Fist Kingdom. But this did not mean that the Iron Fist Dwarf Kingdom had a good relationship with the Blackleaf Elves. The elves and dwarves in the Second Era had a good relationship. But at that time, the ruler of the Lonely Mountain Dwarves was the Hammer Clan. That was the ancestor of Odom Heavyhammer. In terms of character, the Hammer Clan was far easier to get along with than the current 7 dwarf kingdoms. But ever since the sage of the Hammer Clan died unexpectedly, this huge dwarf kingdom also fell, and from then on, there were 7. The current Iron Fist Kingdom was not willing to have friction with the Blackleaf Elves, mainly because they could not win. More importantly, they still had to do some mineral veins business with the Blackleaf Elves. And why is the bounty on Odom Heavyhammer is higher than mine? It's because of the arrest order issued by the Iron Fist Dwarf Clan. William's mouth twitched. This was a sad story. After the Hammer Clan escaped from the war-torn Lonely Mountain, they still had many warriors and clansmen. But after so many years, they were always being hunted. Whether it was the royal bloodline or the clansmen, their numbers were decreasing rapidly. Although the forces of the 7 dwarf kingdoms had never officially appeared, they had not torn the last layer of veil. But if one were to think with their toes, they would realize that the boundless pursuit that the Hammer Clan was facing must have been issued by a certain dwarf clan. That was right. It was someone, or more than one. However, it was definitely not a wanted order issued by the 7 dwarven kingdoms. Otherwise, the Heavyhammer clan would not have been able to hold on until now. Back then, the Heavyhammer clan had brought along their defeated soldiers and a group of old, weak, women, and children. After experiencing countless bloody battles, they had finally escaped into the Blackleaf Forest. As this was the territory of the Blackleaf Elves, the other pursuers would more or less have some concerns. Apart from a few extreme bounty hunters who continued to hunt and kill to earn a relatively large bounty, there were no other bounty hunters. In the end, only the last bloodline of the Lonely Mountain royal family, Odom Heavyhammer, and a few thousand dwarves were left, Odom Heavyhammer at that time. However, the bounty for a beginner professional wasn't high, especially since some of the key royal bloodline and experts had already been killed. The bounty had already been collected. Odom Heavyhammer was only worth 100,000 gold coins. For many high-grade professions, they weren't interested in searching for it in the Blackleaf Forest. It was also because of this. Thus, William had the opportunity to save the dwarfs and obtain a large number of blacksmiths. They became the capital of the city of Dawn's Rise. In just a few seconds, William remembered the time when he had saved Odom and the others. He was like a god who had descended to the mortal world. He had brought hope to a group of desperate dwarfs. More importantly, I had promised Odom that one day I would help him restore his nation in the Lonely Mountain. After William dug out the magical crystals, he and Odom entered the small forest to discuss everything. It was at that time he waved his hand and said that he would help Odom restore his nation. In fact, he wanted to trick Odom into having a good impression of him, because at that time, Odom's loyalty and affection towards him were only 700 points. It wasn't very high. However, under certain circumstances, William was a mercenary guy. But in most cases, he was also one of the top 10 outstanding youths of the southern region who kept his promises. Therefore, he would basically do what he had promised as long as his strength allowed him to. It could be said that if the City of Dawn didn't have Odom and the other dwarfs, it would definitely not have risen so quickly. Whether it was in version 1.0 or version 2.0, it was possible that the City of Dawn would fall into a desperate situation because of insufficient equipment. William might even have to abandon the city and flee. Even now, the dwarves who knew how to be grateful were still forging equipment in the dark underground blacksmith's day and night. They were forging equipment in batches day and night. Why did they do it? They were grateful that William had saved them. They were grateful that the City of Dawn gave them a life where they did not have to flee. They were grateful that the world was so beautiful. They finally did not have to starve and hide all day long. They wanted to numb their nerves by rubbing iron. It was not a joke to rub iron until their hands bled. They wanted to use pain to make themselves forget their dreams, restore their nation. This was what they looked forward to the most. But they knew that if they did not have the support of a powerful force, they would not be able to restore their nation in the Lonely Mountain. They might even die along the way. Odom was the deputy city lord. He did not have as many ideas as William, but he had invested a lot in the development of the City of Dawn. He had his own ideas. He wanted to make the City of Dawn stronger. He wanted to make the City of Dawn stronger so that William could lend him some troops to help him restore his nation. William's heart was like a mirror, but he did not mind doing a favor. Although this mission seemed simple, it was actually very difficult to execute. It was enough to change the situation of the entire continent, even though it was an SSS-level mission. But William was determined to reignite the flames of the Lonely Mountain. He wanted Odom, who had been in contact with him since his reincarnation, to rule the dwarfs on the legendary continent again. The referee had announced the start of the match. Neither of them made a move. William's gaze was dull. He seemed to be daydreaming. Canis Iron Fist circled around him many times. Finally, this 5-meter-tall lad could not help but attack. Iron Fist. Without a doubt, the royal family members of Canis Iron Fist were extremely powerful in close combat. Canis wore a pair of ferocious boxing gloves that looked like the head of a giant dragon. He took a step forward. The golden light was dazzling. The pair of iron fists had already arrived in front of William's face. Crack! William blocked Canis's fist with his left hand. Canis's fist brushed past his head. William was about to grab Canis's arm. Canis's arm flashed with golden light. Suddenly, a metal ring popped out. Just as William was about to crush the metal ring, Canis took the opportunity to withdraw his arm. Both of them kicked each other at the same time. Both of them retreated tens of meters away from the ground. Canis's body flickered with electric arcs, but he did not care. The electric arcs were channeled into the ground by his equipment, and they did not cause much damage to him. William raised his eyebrows. According to logic, a thunder element professional could restrain a metal element professional like Canis. After all, metal could conduct electricity. Everyone knew this, but Canis Iron Fist was the little prince of the Dwarf Kingdom. He had too many pieces of equipment on him. When facing a fire element professional, he would wear a fire-resistant legendary equipment set. When facing a thunder element professional, he would wear a lightning-resistant legendary equipment set. After all, nobody would throw away a legendary equipment set. After so many years, other than those that had been destroyed, there were at least 7 or 8 sets of advanced legendary equipment set from the Iron Fist royal family. Canis might have brought all of his advanced legendary equipment set to participate in the Magic Conference. He would change his equipment for every opponent. It was inhumane. D*MN. I hate people like you who rely on your equipment. William was a little angry. He gave up on using the Thunderblade and decided to use his fist to fight with Canis. Because Prince Canis was also very arrogant. This was especially true for enemies he disliked. He especially liked to defeat them using methods that others were good at. Since Canis liked to use his fists, William would use his fists too. As for the skills of the Grandmaster of Combat, forget it. His left hand of God dealt more damage than any skills. Canis suddenly mocked. Everyone says that you're the Elfin Prince, but most of the equipment of the Dawn Army is made by the dwarves. Others might not know, but I know that you're using your reputation as the Blackleaf Elfin Prince to deceive others. William's disguise had been exposed. Although he was furious, he sneered and said, "Oh, why do you think my people allowed 100,000 Blackleaf elves to join the City of Dawn? Why do you care if I'm a prince or not? Odom Heavyhammer is the king of the Lonely Mountain. You traitors, you deserve to die." Canis roared with a sinister expression. He charged at William and punched wildly. Every time he punched, there would be huge shockwaves and fist shadows. The air seemed to be torn apart. After all, Canis had a legendary bloodline and a legendary occupation. His real strength was not weak. His punches were very fast. After all, he was a Grandmaster of Combat. William was not a professional, so it was difficult for him to grab Canis' arms and legs. But since Canis exposed his shortcomings, the audience was amused. William dodged and said, "Does the collapse of the Lonely Mountain Empire have nothing to do with the 7 dwarf kingdoms? Especially the Iron Fist clan. During the Civil War in the Lonely Mountain Empire, you were the first to start a war. As the last descendant of the Lonely Mountain Empire, Odom Heavyhammer had a very high bounty. Many people tried to assassinate him. It was the same in the City of Dawn. Do you dare to say that the bounty was not issued by the Iron Fist clan? Shut up. The royal bloodline of the Lonely Mountain Empire is extinct. How can you be so sure that Odom Heavyhammer is the last descendant of the Lonely Mountain Empire?" After being punched several times, William seized the opportunity to knee Canis in midair. If you're so capable, don't stop him from going to the Lonely Mountain. Besides the Heavyhammer bloodline, who else can open the last door to the abyss? Both of them fought and scolded each other. The audience was shocked. He didn't expect that there would be so many gossips to listen to while watching the show. Chapter 310. Both of them exposed each other for a long time. They scolded each other until their faces turned red. But in the end, they stopped their attacks. Both of them had the same thought. Since they could fight, then they would stop talking nonsense. Since they had fallen out, they would just fight. Canis was a metal element close combat professional. His usage of metal elements was not as insane as Diablo's. His endowment was not as impressive. But in close combat, he could control metal to defend against William's attacks. Every punch and kick of William carried thunder attribute damage. With the special skills of his equipment set, he could even trigger lightning attacks. To ordinary advanced professionals, this was a devastating blow. If William made a move, they would kneel down and surrender. They would be so cowardly. But Canis' Iron Fist equipment set had insane defense against thunder. He understood the problem of metal conduction. Before the thunder could get close to him, it would be channeled into the ground by the metal. As a result, William's stacked thunder attacks were unable to deal much damage to Canis. Even the negative attribute buffs had no effect on Canis. But William was also a half-baked soul mage. Many of the skills of the Saint Soul magic were supportive. But for a close combat professional like William, as long as he could seize the opportunity, he could use his mental explosion. At this moment, the battle between both of them had reached its climax. The arena was split into two by the golden light and lightning. Canis' fists were ferocious. Every punch was filled with majestic power. If they were outside the arena, his punches could easily destroy half a house. Not only did his gauntlets have terrifying lethality, but they were also equipped with metal needles that would shoot out from time to time. William's body was riddled with holes. If not for William's thunder attribute, which allowed him to electrocute his wounds, he would have been covered in blood. William's attacks were cool and could be used to make a living. He could also flirt with girls without using money. Cough, cough. Anyway, it was useless against Canis, who was using a lightning rod. William watched as Canis evaded his left hand's attacks. Although he looked angry and impatient, he was laughing coldly in his heart. When Canis realized that William could not catch him, he used his body to its fullest. His hands, feet, elbows, knees, and shoulders were all weapons. His fighting style was extremely fierce and perverted. As long as he did not touch William's left hand, in terms of close combat, he was 100 times stronger than William, who did not wield a weapon. Another punch landed on William's chest, and the latter flew back like a cannonball. But as he retreated, he used Thunderfinger, a bolt of lightning so dense that it was almost insanely powerful, tore apart Canis' metal shield like a giant serpent and hit his chest. But Canis bellowed, and countless electric currents revolved around him. The suit on his body instantly separated from the surface, and most of the lightning was directed into the ground or into the air. Many people were shocked to see this scene. They hadn't expected William's true opponent to be a metal element professional. As long as one's ability to control metal was abnormal enough, they could almost completely defend against William's thunder attribute. The next second, Canis remained silent and expressionless as he charged forward. He appeared in front of William and continuously punched with his cannon fists. Bang, 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 bang. William was sent flying like a sandbag. But what was even more surprising was that the Lord of Dawn had been beaten up for a long time. At this moment, the rune suit was a little damaged, but he was still full of energy and did not seem to be declining at all. He was like a cockroach that couldn't be killed. Even if he was strong, William's skin was tough enough. That was right. William was passively being beaten up. Besides the fact that he couldn't catch Canis, he also wanted to test his defense. He wanted to see how strong he could be when facing a legendary boss of different occupations. William looked at his remaining 1/3 of health points and glanced at Canis, who was panting and exhausted. He grinned and said, "It's just SSO. It seems that other than top-notch assassins, other professionals can't kill me instantly, even if they use their ultimate skills." However, William had just thought of this sentence in his mind. Canis' arms suddenly became thicker, and they were like reinforced steel. He punched out with both his fists. Boom! The instant he punched out, a visible explosion appeared in the arena out of thin air. When his fists hit William's arms, an indescribable shockwave spread for a radius of 1,000 meters. William flew to the edge of the arena like a cannonball, and he almost fell off. This scene, many people were dumbfounded. They didn't expect Canis to be so powerful. Everyone looked at William, who was covered in blood, in a daze. Was the Lord of the City of Dawn going to use his fists to fight with a Grandmaster of Combat? Canis transformed into a shadow and was about to follow up with another attack. A sudden mental explosion occurred. It hit Canis' head. Boom! The dwarf felt that his brain had been blasted. His heart turned cold. MMP. He was too excited. He had forgotten that Canis was a soul mage. Then, he felt that his brain had short-circuited. His eyes were open, but the scene in front of him was a blur. Just when he came back to his senses, he suddenly heard a sound. His vision turned black. His nose was in excruciating pain, and blood was flowing profusely. William had grabbed his neck with his left hand and punched him. His nose was bleeding profusely. Second punch. Let go of me. Canis wanted to resist, but he couldn't even free a finger from William's left hand. The second punch landed on his face. Bang! Canis couldn't open his mouth. His lips were smashed, and his teeth fell to the ground. William didn't care about his lower body's attack. He let Canis kick and stomp. He didn't even dodge. He relied on his thick skin to resist. He didn't have to worry that Canis' fist would land on his face. He was a dwarf. Not only were his legs short, but his arms were also short. According to the brain of a child, he wouldn't be able to reach William's picture. Imagine. But after Canis was caught by William, he couldn't escape. Did William intend to use the battle energy released by his fist to injure Canis? Next, the spectators watched as William's right hand pummeled Canis' face like a pile driver. Bang, 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 bang. Canis' teeth fell to the ground, and he couldn't surrender. Canis' face caved in, and it was difficult to achieve plastic surgery in Korea. Canis' legs started to twitch, and he started to twitch occasionally, until a life-saving shield appeared. William released his left hand from Canis' neck. At the same time, he shook his blood-stained right glove. Useless. Do you know why I didn't use a weapon? It's because I used my fist that the shield appeared at the last second. William sneered. If he had used a long sword, the damage would have been too high, and a shield would have appeared. But it wouldn't have left a psychological scar on Canis. As for getting beaten up, that was normal. He didn't use his endowment to get beaten up. Wouldn't that be a loss? William kicked Canis out of the arena. Then he glanced at the dwarves outside the arena, who were glaring at him. His left hand silently raised a middle finger. That's too much. D*MN. I've never seen such a vicious elf. Prince Canis might not be able to show his face in the future. He doesn't look good. Maybe he had plastic surgery. But don't do business with the Blackleaf Elves in the future. Let's go to war. After he finished speaking, suddenly there was silence. A few dwarves couldn't help but look at the idiot. They asked him with their eyes, "Are you stupid?" It's fine if you say that Prince Canis is ugly to begin with. But if the Iron Fist Dwarf Kingdom were to go to war with the Blackleaf Elves, wouldn't that be courting death? And it was the kind that had to be taken while it was hot. Furthermore, it was only the Lord of the City of Dawn's problem. Why did they have to associate it with the Blackleaf Elves? Wasn't this increasing their power for no reason? However, the Magic Conference was not only for humans and dwarves. The Harpies, elves, half-elves, and gnomes could all participate, but there were fewer of them. Many people enjoyed watching the battle of the Lord of the City of Dawn. Naturally, there were also some Blackleaf elves who were purely there to join in the fun. They were here to get rewards, but they did not intend to join any forces for free. Oh, actually, most of them were freeloaders. However, with so many participants in a Magic Conference, the four great factions did not need to recruit all of them. Even if they only recruited a portion of them, they would be able to create great value in the future, far surpassing the rewards that the four great factions had given out. Some of the traveling Blackleaf elves who came to participate in the competition could not help but frown when they heard the words of the Iron Fist dwarves. Their opinion of William was very average. In any case, it was just that the talent of being handsome had forcibly increased his favorable impression of her. Oh, that was right. After the Magic Conference, William had earned countless favorable impression points. Basically, those who did not have a grudge against him had a good impression of him. In their hearts, William was considered a kind of good fellow. Of course, he was a half-elf, so he definitely had human characteristics. His various fighting methods and speech patterns were very different from the pure-blooded elves. But at the very least, he had never lied. He was the prince of the Blackleaf Elves, and he had indeed received some support from the Blackleaf Elves, such as the 100,000 Blackleaf Elves. But the Blackleaf Elves had gone a little overboard. The hearts of some elves were as clear as a mirror. The fragmentation of the lonely mountain dwarf empire was originally caused by the civil war of the dwarves. William had said one thing, but they refused to admit the facts, and even threatened this and that. It had to be known. If they wanted to be serious, not only were the dwarves stubborn, but the elves were also the kind who would not recognize reason. In short, these participating Blackleaf elves were very supportive of William's actions. Because the elves had a longer history and had more records, they also knew that the dwarves who ruled the Lonely Mountain were their true friends. Nowadays, the dwarves were basically very difficult to get along with. And at this moment, a participant who was standing in the corner was suddenly enveloped by a black aura. His body kept twisting and changing. In just a few seconds, when his eyes opened again, a black light flashed. He grinned and squinted at the winner who had just walked down the arena. William. Meanwhile, the four legendary seemed to have sensed something. But when they looked over, they could no longer find any information. They could only suppress their doubts and secretly ponder. Chapter 3:11. When William jumped off the arena, his anus tightened. He immediately sensed danger staring at him. Another unruly commoner is trying to harm me. Damn, I've been feeling a sense of danger for the past 2 days. I wouldn't have known if I hadn't come to the magic conference. Now that I'm here, I realize that there are many people who want to kill me. But he could not figure out who dared to be impudent in the magic conference. Even if the shield was broken, could they kill him? The prince scratched his head. He must have thought too much. He did not claim that he was the champion of the entire magic conference, but he dared to say, other than Delosis, everyone else is a younger brother. It is the same for Sardin. William shifted his gaze to the professional whose body had undergone a mutation. He seemed to be adapting to his own body. Not to mention fighting. Even the walkway was swaying as if he was drunk. He did not care about the strange gazes of the onlookers. After a while, he had adapted to his body. He looked at the various arenas and smirked. Is this the magic conference of the southern region? It's just a bunch of cuties who have never experienced despair. I really want to kill them and throw their souls into the dark world to be baptized by the darkness. His voice did not travel far, but his eyes were flickering. He gritted his teeth. Buzz. In the next moment, blood flowed from his 7 orifices as though he had suffered a serious internal injury. At this moment, he wiped the blood off his face and licked it with his tongue. A perverted expression appeared on his face. You can resist my soul invasion. Are you showing off your strong mental strength? Oh, that's right. Your bloodline power is not bad. You're considered a genius in the surface world. Since you're a believer of darkness, I only wanted to use your body. But now you have to die. No, you can't die. I'm going to bring you into the dark world. I'll let you understand what true darkness is. You're a believer of darkness. Of course, it's pure. His mouth was muttering silently to himself. But nobody knew. Deep in his heart was a shattered soul. He looked at the terrifying being who was shrouded in darkness with despair. The body that he possessed was a darkness attribute professional. Only a darkness attribute professional who believed in darkness would be able to take advantage of the situation, because he represented pure darkness. When a dark attribute professional was cultivating, if a pure dark aura wanted to enter their body, they wouldn't notice it and would even be more delighted. However, some dark creatures, such as demons and undead, would often take the opportunity to invade the bodies of dark attribute professionals. This was also the reason why dark attribute professionals were not well received. That was because this group of fellows could easily go crazy. This unlucky fellow was a dark warrior from the Palace of Darkness. Not only was he powerful, but he was also ranked 4th on the intelligence list. However, when he was faced with an even darker existence, he was almost unable to resist and allowed it to invade his body. This intruder, he was the son of darkness. As for his goal, was obvious. He was here to cause trouble for William. Perhaps many people were wondering why the Viscount of Darkness was looking for trouble in a magic conference. But William knew that he was this kind of guy who loved to show off. Or in other words, ever since the darkness invasion, the dark forces of the 7 continents spread fear and despair to the living beings on the surface in the most exaggerated way possible. They forced the living beings on the continents to believe in the god of darkness. If not, they would be tortured, abused, feared, and even killed. Similar to the Temple of Light in a legendary continent, various existences that believed in light in other continents were fighting against them. It cannot be helped. The devil's way of doing things was simple and violent. If you didn't believe in it, then they would terrorize and kill. They were a group of magical terrorists. However, William did not know that the Viscount of Darkness had come to the magic conference. He wanted to kill William with the strength of someone of the same level as him. He wanted to take away William's soul and slowly torture it to death in front of Lancelot. After all, the Viscount of Darkness's destiny was to fight against Lancelot, the Viscount of Light. He did not take Prince William seriously at all. William was just a small fry in front of the Viscount of Darkness. He was not worth mentioning. He was just a genius. The Viscount of Darkness had killed more geniuses than William had ever seen. It had to be known. The identity of the Viscount of Darkness was obtained by killing countless dark creatures in a meat grinder. He was the final victor, as well as the most powerful victor. Moreover, he underwent a complete transformation within the altar. Now, he only wanted to use the relationship between William and Lancelot to slowly torture and kill William. He wanted to interrogate Lancelot's soul. That was right. The Viscount of Darkness was a little arrogant and perverted maniac. After all, he was able to kill his way out and become the Viscount of Darkness. His mental state was not normal. He would do all kinds of unimaginable things. He did not want to kill his destiny opponent. He only wanted to pull the Viscount of Light into darkness. He wanted to make the Viscount of Light more powerful and darker. Furthermore, this sort of method was a fatal blow to the Light faction. It was easy to kill a person, but wouldn't it be more satisfying to destroy a person who had absolute faith in light? Even the Viscount of Light would be led into darkness? Wouldn't those who believed in light despair? The semi-finals continued. According to the strength of Annie, Diablo, and Burn Cinder, as long as they did not encounter the top 3 contestants on the intelligence report, they had a chance of winning. It was not a 55% chance. It was definitely 64% or even 73%. But Burn Cinder's battle had caught all the spectators by surprise. Even the legendary big shots had not expected this. At this moment, Burn Cinder's body was like a torn rag doll. Black blood flowed everywhere. His fiery red battle energy flames were faintly discernible. Many black flames appeared on the surface of his body, burning his skin, flesh, and even bones. The contestant standing opposite him, the official Viscount of Darkness, the current Andrus, the seated contestant of the Palace of Darkness. Yeah, weren't you very good at fighting just now? Your flames are very hot. It's so hot that I want to take off my clothes. Ha ha. Andrus laughed maniacally. Not only was his voice piercing, but it also gave off an inexplicable chill. You're very strong, but do you think this is all I have? Burn Cinder clenched his fists. He half knelt on the ground and took deep breaths. As his breathing gradually stabilized, his breathing became more and more stable. His battle energy shield appeared again. Flames. Countless flames drilled out from his skin. It was almost a masochistic method. He released his fiery battle energy from every pore and forcefully extinguished the black flames on the surface of his body. But this way, Burn Cinder's skin was already ugly. Now, he looked like a monster that had been skinned. It was extremely disgusting. It was also hard to imagine how much damage he had suffered. After all, he did not have a fire elemental body. Advanced professionals. Their skills allowed them to release battle energy from certain parts of their body. For example, their hands, feet, or if they learned some skills, they could also use their mouth, eyes, or even their anus cough. Anyway, the different colors of battle energy on the bodies of advanced professionals were actually a manifestation of the battle energy shield. This did not mean that apart from their meridians, their flesh and blood could also withstand this type of battle energy. Burn Cinder used the pores of his body to release battle energy. This was a complete self-abuse, but the more it was like this, Andrus's eyes were filled with joy. He came in front of Burn Cinder in a frenzied manner. He carefully looked at Burn Cinder's body and muttered to himself, Look, this is your essence. Your skin is just your appearance. How beautiful is your essence under your skin. Get lost, Burn Cinder shouted. He looked at the guy in front of him and once again used the dragon-slaying blade. Swoosh! The blade radiance had the sharpness to cut through everything. The blade was filled with an aura that could burn everything. This blade, tens of meters. This was the strongest blade that Burn Cinder could unleash. Similarly, it arrived in front of Andrus in an instant. There was a flash of surprise and excitement in the latter's eyes. His original body was that of a dark warrior. He also drew his blade and faced Burn Cinder. Rumble. A black and red wave of air spread continuously in all directions. Burn Cinder did not move. Andrus was covered in blood as he retreated a few hundred meters. However, just as everyone was shocked by Burn Cinder's ultimate move, this guy, who had incredible combat power, suddenly fell to the ground and did not make any more movements. He had withered. The referee saw that Andrus still wanted to continue fighting. He could not bear to do so. After all, Burn Cinder was unconscious. Moreover, William had been boasting to him. Hence, the referee hurriedly extended his hand to stop him. Andrus wins. Burn Cinder loses. At this moment, William immediately flew into the arena. He looked deeply at Andrus. Andrus grinned at him. He had no intention of fighting again. Hence, Prince William carried the skinless Burn Cinder and returned to the crowd. Subsequently, he poured a bottle into Burn Cinder's mouth. Not long after, the injuries on Burn Cinder's body started to recover. His skin gradually recovered and became as smooth as before when he opened his eyes. He saw William, Annie, and the others. Just as he opened his mouth, he immediately turned over and coughed up blood. His body was covered in corroded black blood. But after he spat out the last bit of the dark element poison, Burn Cinder had completely recovered. The audience at the side stared in bewilderment. Damn it! What did he drink to sustain such serious injuries? Was he healed just like that? It had to be known. The faces of the two professionals from the Desert Kingdom and the Iron Fist Kingdom had been deformed by William. After receiving initial treatment from the light element professionals, they had returned to their countries to recuperate. But wasn't Burn Cinder's injuries recovering a little too quickly? William was not in the mood to think about whether the life potion had been exposed. He was wondering who Andrus was. In his previous life, Andrus was not so powerful. Why did he feel that Andrus was so ridiculously powerful? Actually, it was not just him. Delosis, Sardin, Peak, Diablo, and the others were also pondering the origins of Andrus. Or rather, was he so strong that he could do it so easily? Delosis knew that he was very talented, but he had to admit that Burn Cinder was also very outstanding as a fire element professional. He could defeat Burn Cinder, but as they had the same attributes, it would not be that easy. He's a worthy opponent. Delosis stroked his chin. Andrus was the second worthy opponent that he had acknowledged. However, Andrus ignored everyone's gazes. When he walked down the arena, he pointed at everyone and said, "I just want to say that all of you are trash." There was a momentary silence. Then the audience started to curse. But this sentence, however, quite a number of people secretly remembered it in their hearts. Scarbrow, the oracle of the Palace of Darkness, gradually frowned. He thought to himself, what medicine did this lad take? Even if he was possessed by the power of the devil, he wouldn't be that powerful. His personality has changed a lot too. Chapter 3:12. It was nighttime. It was the resting period for many professionals. William and his companions went to the wooden hut that they were staying in. According to the legendary veteran, meditation was a form of rest for professionals. They did not need a good living environment. William could not do anything about this. The organizers were the four major powers. They were too famous and had too much power. They could do whatever they wanted. They did not force the contestants, nor did they send invitations. It was good enough that they had a place to stay and food to eat. However, they only had fish and sea beasts for every meal. Some professionals who did not have space rings were about to vomit. The people of the City of Dawn gathered together. Diablo expressionlessly scanned a large pile of grilled fish, stewed fish, and fried fish. He was about to ask what they wanted to eat today. William suddenly took out a goat magical beast that had been skinned and its innards cleaned. It was dripping with fresh blood. It had a strong odor. The space ring had a strong preservation effect. The odor could be smelled from hundreds of meters away. It was a delicacy for people who liked to eat. However, When Diablo, Annie, and Alex saw the skin goat, they couldn't help but look at burned cinder. They swallowed their saliva and suddenly had an appetite for the fish that had been delivered to them. Ahem, this goat, I don't feel like eating it today. I want to eat fish. That's right. I'm not hungry either. Annie shook her head. She walked to the side with a look of disgust. She took out snacks from her space ring and munched on them like a squirrel. William glanced at Diablo and Alec without any expression. Do you want to eat it? Burned cinder. Do you want to eat it? Of course I want to eat it. I didn't expect Lord William to remember that I like to eat roasted goats. It's not easy to catch them. Burned cinder grinned. He was not too depressed about today's defeat. A defeat was a defeat. There was no need to find excuses. He would train where he could not perform. He would just have to start from scratch. Furthermore, no one said that he would be finished if he lost the semifinals. He still had a chance. William snapped his fingers at Diablo. A long metal spear materialized and pierced through the goat's head to its buttocks. Burned cinder was very self-aware. He extended his hand, and a continuous stream of flames engulfed the goat. From head to toe, the flames were very uniform. Not a single trace of the flames leaked out. As long as there were no accidents, a whole roasted lamb would only take 10 minutes. However, Burned cinder hesitated for a while and couldn't help but ask, is Andrus from the Palace of Darkness really that strong? Diablo and Alec looked at William. Annie sat at the side and pricked up her ears. She wanted to hear what William had to say. After a few days of fighting in a magic conference, William had used his strength to prove that he was the strongest among his peers in the City of Dawn. There was no doubt about this, because those who dealt more damage than him weren't as tanky as him. Those who were tankier than him weren't as fast as him. Those who ran faster than him weren't as far away as him. And those who had a longer range than him were especially tanky. Everyone present had sparred with William before and knew that William had gradually become stronger. They also wanted to know how powerful Andrus was. Why was there such a huge gap between the two top-notch high-order professions? The prince turned the whole roasted lamb in his hand, stroked his chin, and said, "Talent. I think I'm quite talented." Alex said, and then shut his mouth. Who in the City of Dawn did not think that they were the best in the world? But the southeastern region, not only had the City of Dawn settle the problem, but the territory was also too small. There were only so many high-grade professions. Even if the mana revival would lead to the gradual breakthrough of many professions. However, no matter how hard they tried, they could not catch up to Burned cinder and the rest, who had already become advanced. William had brought them to the magic conference so that they could broaden their horizons. Even if they were not struck by lightning, they would still be beaten up. Do you mean that his talents are much stronger than ours? Burned cinder asked. Something like that. You should have read some night novels before. Many people were geniuses of the same rank when they were at the beginner, intermediate, and advanced ranks. But as time went on, the gap between them was often larger. However, there were an extremely small number of people who had already displayed their talent when they were in the middle or high ranks, and they were able to surpass geniuses of the same rank by a large margin. And this kind of person is called the disposition of a sage. Diablo successfully answered. William raised his knife and rewarded him with a piece of lamb thigh that was not cooked. That's right. The prince continued. In fact, Delosis, who is on the intelligence list, and Andrus, whose performance was off the charts today, have already displayed the qualities of a saint. They have the potential to become a sage. If that's the case, then the gap is too big. I thought I could become a sage. Burned cinder was no longer depressed. If this was the legendary disposition of a sage, then it was not too bad that he had lost. TSK. You're only an advanced, and you want to become a sage? Why don't you become a god? Burned cinder shrugged his shoulders and said, I have something to look forward to. If not for the fact that there's no way to become a god, and I can only become a sage, do you think I don't want to become a god? Bah. William curled his lips and said, I have something to look forward to. Let's talk about it after I become an epic titled expert. After he finished speaking, he did not say anything else. This Andrus was different from what he remembered. In William's previous life, Andrus was a legendary boss, but he was not that powerful. He died in the plot, and was treated as an instance dungeon boss by the players. William knew what Burn Cinder was going to do when he raised his buttocks. But today his moves had changed. Apart from that young and tender face that had not changed much, everything else had changed. Burn Cinder was a legendary boss who had lived for several versions. In the end, he became an epic titled expert. He was very powerful. But now, he had been defeated by Andrus. Something was not right. But most of the professionals in the Palace of Darkness had taken potions, transformed, and sacrificed. There were too many ways to become stronger in the Gods' Continent. William did not know what was going on. But the changes in this year's Magic Conference are too great. Is my butterfly effect really that strong? William looked at the roasted goat. It was almost done. He sprinkled some salt on it and brushed some chili sauce on it. He did not think too much. Crunch. Slurp, slurp. The taste was amazing. It was tender and tasty. It even had the fragrance of fresh grass. After all, this goat magical beast had another name. Fairy Goat. William slowly gnawed on the goat's thigh. He did not worry too much. After all, he had come this far. He had to deal with whatever came his way. His enemies had trump cards. So did he. His enemies had trump cards. So did he. So far, he had many trump cards that he had not revealed. No matter what, he had to fight for first place. Even if he had to face the reincarnated god, Delosis, or the mutated Andrus. Anyway, he had to defeat both of them. In the semifinals, everyone had to fight 3 rounds. 32 contestants would enter the finals. If they obtained 3 consecutive victory points, they would enter the finals. If the rest of the contestants did not have enough victory points, they would be revived. There were a total of 100 contestants. If the players came to participate, they would definitely say, "Gosh, this is what it means to be an epic and legendary contestant," because 80% of the 100 contestants were legendary bosses. There were plenty of experts. It cannot be helped. This was the southern region. In particular, they could only represent the contestants. There would only be more contestants who did not participate. After a rough calculation, there were about 300 to 500 advanced legendary professionals in the southern region, in a situation where they had the same bloodline. In the competition between NPCs, they could only rely on their equipment, paywalls, their occupations, and their endowments. In addition, they had to rely on their impressive luck points. If I hit you with a critical hit, you would deal the least damage to me. But even so, the dazzling, thrilling battles were still too much for the eyes to take in. Burn Cinder and the other real NPCs had gained a lot of experience points. Among them, the City of Dawn was the most eye-catching. William, the Lord of the City of Dawn, had 3 consecutive victories and entered the finals. Annie, the Moonlight Elfin Princess, had 3 consecutive victories and entered the finals. Diablo had 3 consecutive victories and entered the finals. Besides losing the first round, Burn Cinder had won the next 2 rounds. In the revival round, he had a huge advantage. There were only 32 contestants. The City of Dawn had 4 contestants. The City of Dawn had been in the limelight in this Magic Conference. Many professionals had joined the City of Dawn, but most of them were advanced, grandmaster, and epic. If the legendary NPCs did not have a good impression of them, or if they failed in certain aspects of the plot, it would be difficult to win them over. If they went to the City of Dawn, they could become a Legion Commander or Deputy Legion Commander in a regular army. Either way, they could join the Dawn mercenary team. The most important thing was the City of Dawn was rich. The monthly income of the professionals who joined the City of Dawn was comparable to that of some of the top forces. The only drawback was the lack of resources. Professionals with different attributes had to buy materials to make equipment. But this was not a problem for some professionals. Many people did not like the top forces like the Temple of Light and the Magic Sanctuary. After all, the 4 major forces were too powerful. Whether they joined or not, they would not attract any attention. They would also not receive any resources. If that was the case, he might as well join a rising force and obtain more benefits. This was the so-called better to be the neck of a chicken than the tail of a phoenix. As long as they did not join the regular army, they could join the mercenary team. There was not a long time limit. If they were unhappy, they could leave the City of Dawn which had been in the limelight and was recruiting soldiers to poach the talents of the four major forces, was overshadowed by Andrus, who was possessed by the Viscount of Darkness. The current Andrus was like a true dark horse. In the semi-finals, he could kill anyone who stood in his way, even the top 10 experts in the intelligence report, or the professionals who had performed well in the early stages. They were being toyed with by Andrus. For a moment, the audience, who had been eliminated, understood that another person who could become the champion had appeared. In particular, Andrus was more powerful. He had won 3 battles in the semi-finals, and he was more likely to become the champion than William and Delosis. It was already very powerful for Burnsinder to return to the finals. But the more powerful he was, the more powerful Andrus was. On the 9th day, the finals officially began. There were 32 contestants. There were a total of 16 groups. The list of names had been distributed. Then it was announced. Many people felt that someone was hostile towards the City of Dawn when they saw this. This was a deathmatch group. William would fight against Brooke, who was ranked 5th on the intelligence report. He was a seeded player from the Mercenary Guild. Annie would fight against Sardin Peak, who was ranked 3rd on the intelligence report. Diablo would fight against the Dark Horse, Viscount of Darkness, Andrus. Burnsinder would fight against the opponent that he wanted to fight the most. Ranked 1st on the intelligence report, Delosis. They were both fire element professionals.